Chapter 1065. For a moment, Yin Shirsi was both happy and suspicious. His name was a little weird. Since he was called Yin Shirsi, he must be ranked. That meant there must be 13 people before him. But who were they? What was Boss Sword's rank? He must be one of the best, right? Wait a minute. Could it be that Boss Swa has 13 other subordinates, all of whom are stronger than me? That was impossible. 13 primordial spiritual treasures? Yin Shirsi suddenly shuddered. That was impossible. Anyway, he had to keep a low profile. Thinking of his name, Yin Shirsi felt like he was going to be beaten. There were 13 people before him. As the youngest, he would be a punching bag. Come on, I'm ready. I'm ready to face the storm. Don't be happy too early. You might not be able to stay as Shirsi for long. If there are more people who are more useful than you might become Yin Shirsi. Of course, if there are more, you might become Yin Shirsi. But if you perform well, you might become Yin Shirsi, Zhou Xiaoduo said leisurely. I'll do my best. Yin Shirsi felt like he had been hit in the head when his prediction was confirmed. He kept bowing and swearing that he would live up to Zhuo's recognition. Good. I'll see how you perform in the future. Yin Shirsi was overjoyed to get his name. Besides, he was in a place he had always dreamed of. No. This was a super place he had never dreamed of. He was so happy that he almost flew to heaven. However, in the next moment his joy turned to sorrow. Yin Shirsi was surrounded by Bai and Jiao. Yin Shirsi was shocked. Sure enough, there were more primordial spiritual treasures than his. And there were 2 of them at the same time. You too. Hee. Boss. Bai and Jiao didn't look friendly. Their eyes were full of someone is coveting my good stuff, as they walked over aggressively. Who is this? Bai, the palm-sized little girl in a white dress, looked disgusted. What's this? Jiao frowned. Isn't he too ugly? He must be a thief. Little White came to a conclusion. I think so too. Jiao was fuming. The 2 little ones looked at the god-killing spear, Ling Yin 14, and their expressions became more and more unkind. The sword spirit of the Wahuang sword flew in and said, in the future, we must all live in harmony. We must all listen to Boss and work together to create great achievements. But Wahuang sword was Spirit Smoke 14's sword boss, not Bai and Jiao's boss. How could he be willing to listen to this guy's nonsensical words? Looking at the cowering god-slaying spear Spirit Smoke 14, he inexplicably felt that this guy was so wretched. Not to mention, he was filled with an annoying aura. Hence, beat him up. Beat him up. The 2 little guys didn't say anything. They swarmed up, grabbed Smoke 14, and beat him up violently. Smoke 14, who was just happy a moment ago, was on the verge of death and became more and more dispirited, that he begged for mercy and called Boss. But Bai and Jiao didn't show any mercy. Even the last bit of his soul was beaten up violently. Zhou Xiaoduo was stunned and hurriedly shouted to stop. But Smoke 14 was only left with the strength to twitch. What's going on? Seeing that they had caused trouble, Bai and Jiao hurriedly slipped away. Wahuang sword coughed and said, this guy can absorb the vitality to recover. The laurel honey is a life-saving treasure, the essence of the true fire, and the jade of astral souls that he usually cultivates. This guy can also absorb. And that. The sword of Empress Enviwa mumbled for a while, then slipped away, because it knew that Zhou Xiaoduo would be heartbroken if he lost the true Pishio. And if Zhou Xiaoduo was heartbroken, he would find trouble with it, the initiator. Of course, it had to slip away as soon as possible. As for whether this new little brother was dead or alive, how could Master Sword care so much? He didn't care whether he was dead or alive. Zhou Xiaoduo didn't even have the time to feel heartache before he was stunned at hearing Wahuang Sword's words. He thought to himself, I've taken in a foodie with a big belly. He can eat anything? After listening to all this, Zhou Xiaoduo realized that there really wasn't anything in his space ring that this god-slaying spear couldn't eat. What a good appetite. Zhou Xiaoduo sighed, and didn't want to go overboard. He threw 2 pieces of essence of the true fire over, and dripped a drop of laurel honey on it. His heart ached so much that it bled, because he vaguely felt that he had been cheated. Zhou Xiaoduo thought for a while, and threw over all the mid-grade and low-grade jade of astral souls that he didn't need now, as well as some high-grade jade of astral souls. They piled up into a mountain. Yes, it was a mountain, not a small mountain. Then, he pulled over a part of the Sea of Vitality and built a special jade mountain of astral souls. Shisheng. Sigh. Even if you're a foodie, you have to take it easy. This jade mountain is yours, but you have to eat sparingly. Swordsmanship felt melancholy. My resources are limited and I'm so poor. Everyone in my family is a big eater. How can I afford to feed them? I'm so bitter, melancholy, and depressed. Thank you, boss. Yin Shisheng's flattering voice came from his divine soul. There are so many good things. Roar. Bliss. Don't give me that. Hurry up and cultivate well. Becoming stronger is the most important thing. I, your boss, am very poor and miserable right now. I'm waiting for you to quickly come over and help me. Okay. Yin Shisheng agreed and blended into the Jade Mountain. He went to cultivate happily. I'm rich. I'm rich now. The moment he took out a mountain, it was filled with vitality and was completely constructed from star soul jade. Was this considered poor? Is boss being too humble, or am I too inexperienced? Whatever, I have to cultivate quickly and become stronger. Swordsmanship turned back to Zhang Xuejuan and found that she was still lying there quietly. There were no signs of her waking up. Swordsmanship didn't know what was going on. He called Huang's sword over for interrogation. Didn't you say that she'll be fine after the spear is gone? Why isn't she awake yet? Boss, don't be impatient. This woman's soul is damaged. How could she wake up so quickly? It's only because you gave her the laurel honey that her cultivation is incomplete. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to wake up. The sword of Empress Inviwa was speechless. Just tell me how long it'll take for her to wake up. 1 year, 2 years. After all, the god-killing spear entered her body directly. She's severely injured. She needs to become stronger to get through it. However, boss, after this incident, her temperament might change drastically. Huang's sword reminded him. What do you mean? After all, she is the physical body that the god-killing spear once stayed in. Moreover, her natural endowment is that of a chosen host body. After experiencing the influence of the purest devil chi, a stubborn attribute has already formed in her bones. In the future, perhaps in terms of killing in battle, and so on, she will be more explosive. Is there any danger to her life? Danger to her life? Definitely not. A quarter of the laurel honey is enough to make up for the damage to her divine soul. That's good. In Zhuoxiao's opinion, being paranoid was not a problem at all. There were too many people who were stronger than her. If she really went crazy, she could just beat them to the ground and throw them to Xiangcheng. Zhang Xuejuan's foundation was far superior to ordinary people. She could be said to be perfect. In the future, she could ask Xiangcheng to be more attentive to her. She's a young woman after all. It's easy for love to get to her head. I believe that the damage to her divine soul won't be too big of a problem. I'll just sleep for a while more. I was worried that her sudden awakening would expose the secret of my annihilation tower. Now that she's asleep, it's just right for me to act. But I still can't get out now. That old man is probably still waiting outside. I've been in the annihilation tower for less than a day. I can't get out now. Since I can't get out, I'll just continue to cultivate. Swordsmanship grabbed a pile of real fire essence and quickly started to cultivate. Xiao was cultivating. She was seeing results recently. The Huang sword, which had swallowed real fire essence before, was recovering faster than expected. Little White and Little Jiu were also working hard to cultivate. The two of them were clearly determined not to let this wretched newcomer catch up to them. They would always be much stronger than 1, 2, or 3 of them. The boundless vitality in the Tower of Annihilation allowed the two of them to cultivate at an unprecedented rate. Yin Shirsi was also cultivating diligently. He had just arrived in a new environment with such an excellent atmosphere. Naturally, he knew that he should make use of this God-given opportunity to become stronger. At the very least, when he went out or stayed in here, he could not be beaten up every day. He had to have a chance to fight back. At the very least, he had to have the confidence to not be beaten to death. In the entire space of the Annihilation Tower, the busiest person was Xiaolong. She was busy at all times, constantly integrating the spiritual veins and making sure that every inch of the space was taken care of. She did not miss out on anything. She was really picking up and filling in the gaps every moment. In the future, I might be the true dragon who created the world. So in this world, I must be cautious and conscientious from now on. I can't afford to make any mistakes. Time passed slowly. Although Xiaoduo had just broken through to the returnance level, his actual cultivation was naturally just at the returnance level. However, his cultivation had increased by more than a few times compared to when he was at the God reigning level. His combat strength was also much stronger. It was as if he was doing somersaults over and over again. This was the fundamental reason why he could not be at a disadvantage when facing the peak of the Skysore Realm cultivators of the Demon Clan. However, this strength was far from what Xiaoduo had expected. In his opinion, his combat strength should have increased by at least 10 times after he had broken through to such a big realm. When he reached the peak of the returnance level and suppressed it for more than 50 times, he should be at least 100 times stronger than when he was at the peak of the God reigning level. However, Xiaoduo was really dissatisfied with his current progress. How could he suppress Nian Mao with such a small improvement in strength? He originally had some hope, but now 90% of his hope had been shattered. Xiaoduo was a little depressed. Now it seemed that the day when he and Nian Mao consummated their marriage, and the day when he could do whatever he wanted was still far away. Chapter 1066. Of course, Xiaoduo could also feel that there were other benefits as he broke through to the returning profound realm. For example, his control and understanding of his own spirit had taken a big step forward. That feeling was as if a layer of window paper had suddenly been poked open in his mind. His mind was unprecedentedly clear, and everything was clear. His own spirit was so clear and within reach. He could even control and direct it. Compared to before, when he could only sense the existence of the spirit, he could use the power of the spirit to form pressure and subdue the enemy without fighting. It was a completely different concept. Previously, when he first came into contact with the spirit and released the pressure of the spirit, he felt that he was very awesome and very sharp. All I did was stand there, and the other party was scared to death. Wasn't that awesome? But now, it seemed that the way he did it was not stupid, but at least a little low. He clearly understood the existence of the spirit. Although it existed because of him, and was one with his life, they were connected. But on a deeper level, he felt that the spirit was not completely dependent on his life. It was an existence on a deeper level. Yes, it was the kind that could come out to fight alone. With the power of the spirit alone, it could form an independent, even a fighting force that was independent of his life. So the ghosts in the ghost stories are actually the spirit, or a form of expression of the spirit. Xiaoduo was shocked by his own thoughts. He was a little frightened and secretly looked around. Damn, I've been walking too unlucky recently. I'm really drunk. How could I link my spirit with a ghost? What am I thinking? The key now is still fighting strength. I need to further improve my fighting strength. Xiaoduo refocused his cultivation on the improvement of his cultivation. He worked hard to absorb the essence of the real fire in his hands. He quickly absorbed it, and the huge amount of vitality in the space. He gradually improved his cultivation bit by bit. But as he cultivated, he sighed. Unknowingly, I've already adopted so many little babies. The Wahuang sword was naturally a big eater, who did not abstain from meat and vegetables. Moreover, he was the most mischievous. However, this gentleman still had a bit of moral integrity. He was aware of his status, so he did not stuff himself with food, and was somewhat restrained. Xiao, on the other hand, was eating and not eating. The harvest from Zhu Wu's land of inheritance was enough to last it for a long time. Bai Bai and Jiu were very selective when it came to eating. If they didn't like anything, they would simply not eat it. They were the most reserved. But now, there came another one that was as unrestrained as the Wahuang sword. Looking at the god-killing spear Spirit Smoke 14's extremely vicious appearance, it simply wished it could eat even the dirt. It was also completely lacking in moral integrity. Who knew how long that Jade Mountain could last? You're still a half-grown brat, but you're eating my penniless. I'm raising 5 of you. If we include Xiao Long, that would be 6. Xiaoduo was melancholy. Ordinary people are already struggling to raise one child and have to scrimp and save. Now, I'm raising 6 babies. The Wahuang sword looks mature and speaks arrogantly, but in reality, his strength is no different from a baby. Sigh. I'm really unlucky. After some calculations, Zhuoxiaoduo's sorrow came from the bottom of his heart, and he found it difficult to control himself. Not only was there a lot of family pressure and many babies, the problem was that if he was an unmarried father, it would be fine. But now the problem was, he was an unmarried mother. What the fuck? Who could he reason with? Go all out. Go all out. Zhuoxiaoduo wantonly squandered the top-grade jade of astral souls, the top-grade fire essence, and many top-grade cultivation materials were all used without stinginess. Yes, this method was not squandering or extravagance but investment. Only by becoming stronger as soon as possible could he seize more resources and greater benefits. Yes, this was the official statement. In fact, Zhuoxiaoduo always had a sense of crisis. These little ones will not be polite to me at all. If there are good things, they will start to eat the best. If they are not filial in the future, I'm afraid I will have to eat dirt as their mother. Therefore, while I can still snatch from them, I have to quickly pick the best things to use. There was no sun or moon in the tower, and the years were unknown. Outside, Lei Changtian was hiding high in the sky, constantly waiting near the place where Zhuoxiaoduo disappeared. He had waited for 3 days, but that kid still did not show up. He did not even try to probe the situation. He can keep his composure. Originally, with Lei Changtian's temperament and cultivation, not to mention waiting for 3 days, even if it was 3 months or 3 years, his heart would be as still as water. But now, smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices, and he was burning with impatience. But he was helpless. He was very clear that if he were to put himself in Zhuoxiaoduo's shoes, he would probably be able to keep his composure better than Zhuoxiaoduo. After all, it was a matter of life and death. Who would not want to be safe? There was a strong enemy outside, and he was so weak that he could be blown to death by the enemy's breath. No matter how careful he was, it would not be too much. But Lei Changtian had other concerns. What should I do if you don't come out? It has been a long time since we lost contact with you. Even your parents might already know this. If you come out quickly, I will feel better. If you don't come out, it will really kill me. In fact, the news of Zhuoxiaoduo's disappearance, as time went on, it was indeed impossible to hide it. Feng Hai. Li Chenglong strictly ordered everyone to concentrate on cultivation and not go out. They must not be distracted. Although it was not forbidden to practice, it was strictly forbidden to look for Zhua. This is an emergency. Before we get accurate information, no one is allowed to act rashly. If we act rashly, it will only cause the opposite effect. Besides, young, impulsive, and easily misled by people with ulterior motives. Since this matter has been taken over by the higher-ups, their power is much stronger than ours. What we should do now is either to wait for Zhua to come back peacefully, or to concentrate on cultivation and improve ourselves as much as possible. Accumulate strength and prepare to avenge Zhua. Li Chenglong's face was very ugly. His eyes were unprecedentedly stern, and his voice was full of killing intent and solemnity. No one is allowed to act rashly. Gao Qiaoer. Here. Pay close attention to the school. See if there are any strange words being said, or if there are suddenly more people who have close connections with the outside world. Okay. Pai Bao. I suggest that you use the next period of time to go out and practice. Your assassination and archery skills are difficult to practice in the school. Go out, accept missions, and kill people. Xiang Chong, you go too. At this time, we can't take care of your wife. According to the situation you described, let alone us, even if Zhuo was still here, it would still be difficult for him to do anything. If you still immerse yourself in this matter and suffer for a few more days, you will fall behind. No matter how much you cry, you will not be able to bring your wife back. Now get out of here. If you can't concentrate on cultivation, go out and practice and kill people. Xiang Bing, you go too. Zhen Piapiao, why are you wiping your tears over there? Can your tears bring Zhua back? If you can't cultivate, go out and practice. If Zhua can come back alive, I won't say anything. But if something bad happens to him, It's useless even if you cry to death. Those who can't concentrate on cultivation, go out and practice and fight. This time, there will be no rescue. There will be no positioning. Go out. That's the case for everyone. Go out and accept missions, or find the wasteland to practice. Remember, there will be no rescue. If you die outside, you die outside. If you don't die, come back. Yu Yan. You go on foot to find Dragon Soul High Marshal and Li Zhangming. Leave today. Along the way, you are not allowed to rely on any means of transportation or external help. With your own strength, go to Dragon Soul High Marshal. All of you get out. Now immediately. Li Chenglong suppressed his temper and chased everyone away. When Xingtian and Yi Chongqing both had some objections to Li Chenglong's decision, they felt that this method was too risky and too extreme. With so many geniuses, it would be a pity if they died outside. However, Li Chenglong stubbornly persisted in his views. Time and tide wait for no man. Li Chenglong was very determined. In order to reduce the sacrifices in the future, we need to grow up in the shortest time possible. Even if there are sacrifices, we will not hesitate. When Xingtian and Yi Chongqing could only agree. After sending everyone out, Li Chenglong quickly returned to the villa and quietly stayed for a while. Then he went to the second floor and went to Zhuo Xiaoduo's room. He sat quietly in Zhuo Xiaoduo's bedroom and did not move for a long time. "Boss, are you still alive? Or are you dead?" Li Chenglong murmured. His eyes, which had always been wise and steady, were filled with helplessness. As the number 2 of the team, if the boss died, the number 2 would naturally be promoted. This was a good thing for many people. But Li Chenglong had never thought of being the boss. Why is number 2 only number 2? It's because I don't have the ability to be number 1, that I can be number 2. If I wanted to be the boss from the beginning, why did I rely on Zhuo from the beginning? Isn't it better to start from the beginning than to wait for the position? If Zhuo is really not here, this team will fall apart. Li Chenglong clearly understood this point. A group of arrogant and unruly geniuses would only submit to one boss. Come back quickly. On the other side, the king of Zhuolu was using an almost crazy attitude. With Fenghai City as the source, he gradually swept across the country, all the way to the border of the continent. Especially the Dao League, because of repeated probing, there were conflicts. The Dao League had raised serious protests several times. But the king of Zhuolu did not care at all. He just said firmly to the other side, "Do you want to fight? Come. You don't want to fight? Move aside. Get lost." At this moment, the continent of astral souls showed unprecedented toughness. However, there was still no news about Zhuo Xiaoduo, whether good or bad. The king of Zhuolu and the heavenly king of the right were getting more and more anxious. Like ants on a hot pan, they were about to lose control of the madness in their hearts. The idea that no news was good news was no longer enough to appease the two of them, because the two of them were very clear. In this world, there were simply too many ways to make a person disappear without a trace. The longer they delayed, the slimmer the chances of Zhuo Xiaoduo's survival. Chapter 1067. For a genius like Zhuo Xiaoduo, if he was secretly captured, the other party would never keep him alive to interrogate or threaten him. It was as good as digging his own grave. No matter what, it was best to kill him immediately, burn his bones and scatter his ashes, and completely erase all traces of him. That was the best choice. Putting himself in her shoes, he would have done the same if he were in her shoes. No news was good news. It might apply to other people, but when it came to Zhuo Xiaoduo, the more there was no news, the worse it was. Keep investigating. Continue to intensify the investigation. The two heavenly kings stared at each other and saw the blood in each other's eyes. This time, they were afraid that something big was going to happen. Maybe the sky was going to fall. Dad sent a message. Yu Dongtian said dryly. Uncle Zhuo and Aunt Zhuo are going to come out of their seclusion in 1 or 2 days at most. If not tonight, it will be tomorrow morning. Come out of their seclusion in perfect condition. The king of Zhuolu's face twitched. This was supposed to be the best news. If they had heard this before, they would have jumped for joy and cheered. Finally, they had a backbone. Finally, they were going to come out of their seclusion. come out of their seclusion in perfect condition. That was great. My star spirit continent has finally produced a true pillar that can be called invincible. From now on, our star spirit continent is no longer the weakest among the 3 continents. Perhaps because of the years of war. Our people are all iron-blooded. Combined with the wisdom of our generals and the sacrifice of our soldiers, we have become the most powerful one. How could it not be a pleasant surprise? How could it not be a joyous occasion? However, this news made their hearts feel heavy, and even a little uncomfortable. If Uncle Zwa and Aunt Zwa received the news that their most beloved son had disappeared. His whereabouts were unknown. In that case, so what if his cultivation was exceedingly high? If they didn't have a child before, they might not have done anything. But now that they had a child and lost him, it would be an unprecedented blow to their state of mind. No one could predict what would happen after coming out of their seclusion in perfect condition. The only thing they could be sure of was, something big is going to happen. Yu Dongtian sighed. Yin Zhonghu sighed. That's right, something big was about to happen. Perhaps it was something big that would shake the 3 continents. No, it would fall on the Zwa couple. Using the word shake was too shallow. At the very least, it had to be something that would shake the foundations of the 3 continents. If the news of Zwa Xiao's death was confirmed, at least one thing could be foreseen. The Feng and Yun families, who had participated in the assassination of Zwa Xiaoduo, would definitely be wiped out. Even the 2 patriarchs of Wind and Cloud would have to be buried with him. Whoever dared to stop him would be buried with him. Even the remaining 5 swords of the Tao League, and the number 1 Taoist Thunder, might not be an exception. Uncle Zwa and Aunt Zwa had perfectly broken through their bottleneck. Once again, they had transcended the mortal world and looked down on the common people. As for the 3rd prince, who had once played tricks on Whitehead Mountain, not only was there no chance of luck, but he would also bring disaster to the royal family. For mighty figures like Zwa Chonglu and Wu Yuding, who had experienced many changes in the imperial court, the deterrence and pressure of the secular imperial power on them was not only 0, it was negative. I've watched the rise and fall of the dynasty for so many generations. And now you're telling me that the imperial power is supreme? Fuck you. When I shocked the world, the ancestors of the royal family were not even liquid. All of you die. This was the most direct and simple way to respond. No one would stand up for the royal family. And no one would dare to stand up for the royal family. Just wait for the thunder from the 9th heaven, and the world to be turned upside down. Yu Dongtian's face was gloomy. Yin Zhonghu squatted on the ground and covered his face with his hands. He was feeling terrible for his master and mistress. A perfect breakthrough to become an invincible expert. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion. However, when he came out filled with ecstasy and excitement, he was told that his son was gone. What kind of disappointment was that? This was probably the feeling of falling from heaven to hell all of a sudden. Moreover, it was like falling from heaven right after reaching heaven. There was no process in between at all. Losing their only child. How painful was this for a couple? Yin Zhonghu wished that he was the one who died. As long as his master and mistress did not have to bear the pain of losing their son, it would be better for him to die than for his junior brother to die. We've sent all the images to the Sun Moon Pass. Every high-ranking officer has a copy. Yu Dongtian said. I hope we can find something there. Yin Zhonghu did not say anything, as if he did not hear anything. It was possible in any direction, but it was impossible in the direction of the Sun Moon Pass. That was the headquarters of the Astral Souls. Most of the Astral Souls experts were gathered there. No matter how stupid the enemy was, it was impossible for them to capture Zwa Xiaoduo from there. Shangjing. Qin Fengyang excitedly grabbed his phone and called Zwa Xiaoduo. He was very excited. After working hard for so long and waiting for so long, he finally received a confirmed piece of news. The signs of the dragons, seizing the veins, had suddenly appeared this year. However, it was strictly controlled after that. All the Astral Souls geniuses, the best of the best, including the people from the various hidden sects, would enter the ancestral dragon's vein. The dragon vein energy, that had been cultivated for 20 years, would suddenly erupt one day in the near future. Then, These dragon veins' energy would randomly find their own owners and merge with them to increase their life force. That was the gathering of the dragon veins of the entire continent. And the owner who received the dragon veins would have his entire foundation, astral souls, aptitude, and even comprehension, providence, and luck improved qualitatively. This was the final step of cultivating a genius and transforming them. The human prodigies who had gone through the dragon veins would grow to the point where they could hold their own in the shortest time possible. This result caused the dragons seizing the veins to become the lifeline of the entire continent. It also involved the true secret of the dragon veins. Therefore, it was invisibly affected and controlled by a force no one knew, and no one could calculate the exact time when the dragons seizing the veins would happen. Only when the dragon veins matured and emitted a certain aura on their own would people know that such a great thing had happened this year. There was no pattern to the time. Sometimes it might not even appear once in 100 or 200 years. Sometimes it would appear twice in 3 years. There was no pattern at all. There was no cultivation limit to entering the dragons seizing the veins, only age. One could not be more than 36 years old. Other than that, there were no restrictions. There was even no limit to the number of people. Even if 10,000 or 100,000 people entered at once, it did not matter. However, the total number of dragon veins was limited. If it really fell on 100,000 people, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it had no effect at all. In other words, the fewer people who entered, the better. In the past, the minimum number of people was 12. When the number was at its peak, 108 people had entered. However, at that time, those 108 people had mediocre achievements. None of them had great achievements. However, there would still be countless people waiting every year. They waited bitterly, hoping that the ancestral dragon veins would appear again. Then, according to this sign, they would determine how many people could enter. Of course, there were some individual factors in this. For example, even if you were the continent's #1 genius, you would not know about this at all, and there would be no one to recommend you. Then, you would not be able to enter. Therefore, there was room for manipulation in this aspect. And such manipulation, naturally, no one dared to talk about it openly. Most of the people in the empire did not know about this. And those who knew about this might not be qualified or suitable. Even if they were qualified and suitable, they would not know the exact time. This was the reason why this matter was so disgusting. Because, even if it was only a few hours before telling you, you would not be able to make it in time. The reason why Qin Fangyang did everything he could to enter the ancestral dragon martial school was because of this. Every time such a good thing fell on the students of the ancestral dragon martial school. As the saying goes, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. The reason why the ancestral dragon martial school was the top of the 3 martial schools was also because of this. Even if the other martial school students had the same aptitude and talent as the ancestral dragon martial school students, the ancestral dragon martial school students had a greater chance of getting this opportunity. No one could say anything about this, because this was the privilege of the ancestral dragon martial school. Other than the absolute upper echelons who could squeeze people in, the others could forget about it. And Qin Fangyang had been lying low for this period of time, just for this opportunity. He knew that He Yuanyue had always been looking forward to this opportunity. This was the real opportunity for a fish to leap over the dragon's gate. For the poor students, Qin Fangyang's biggest hope was to get Zhuo Xiaoduo, Li Chenglong, and the others into the dragon's seize the veins. If there was only one hope, then no matter what, he had to get Zhuo Xiaoduo in. Entering the dragon's seize the veins meant that he would definitely be one of the upper echelons in the future. Letting the students of the Phoenix City Second High School enter the dragon's seize the veins. This was He Yuanyue's biggest hope and wish. Since it was He Yuanyue's wish, Qin Fangyang had to fulfill this wish at all costs. From the hands of the upper echelons, from the dense unspoken rules, he had to pull out this quota. Now he finally got this news. All the hard work, all the planning, all the effort. To get this news, everything is worth it. Qin Fangyang was full of joy. Qianqian, after I finish this, I will resign from the ancestral dragon martial school and return to Phoenix City slowly waiting for your appearance. Maybe you won't appear, maybe I won't find you again in this life, but I will protect the Phoenix City Second High School, and protect your hard work well. I will fulfill all your wishes. I will let you, whether it's Lu Qianqian or He Yuanyue, know that you didn't love the wrong man. As long as it's your matter, as long as it's something you want to do, I will do it for you. Qin Fengyang's eyes were shining. When I see you again, I will tell you with a clear conscience that I have fulfilled your wish. The groundwork has been laid. The demon race, the Wu people, the Tao League, the spirit race, the Western race, the ancient almighty, the Wu people's future, and countless other future trajectories have been laid out. From now on, there is no need to lay out the groundwork. The plot will be accelerated all the way to the end. If there are some future plots that you don't understand, you can come back and read this part of the UMNO Alliance. Chapter 1068. The so-called confirmation of the news was not easy. Qin Fengyang was taking a huge risk. This was because the root of this matter had always been the biggest dark area in the entire Yanwu Empire. The true upper echelons, such as the left and right heavenly kings, and the four great generals, were not interested in this dragons fighting for heritage. In the eyes of the true powerhouses, the so-called dragons fighting for heritage was far from a great opportunity. Rashly getting involved would be demeaning themselves. There were many family disciples who were related to them studying in the ancestral Dragon High School. When encountering this opportunity, one's results would speak for themselves. If one's strength was not as good as others, wouldn't it be normal for them to not have a chance? On the other hand, if there were children in these families who were usually among the top in the ancestral Dragon High School, then when this opportunity came, there would definitely be a place for them. However, this kind of opportunity that the upper echelons looked down on, and the lower echelons could not come into contact with, or even covet, gradually formed a huge circle of benefits over time. Ordinary commoners had outstanding talents and cultivation strength that far surpassed their peers. They were the strongest candidates to compete for the dragons fighting for heritage. However, at some point in time, they would suddenly be injured or their cultivation realm would slip. This kind of thing was common. No matter how unwilling they were, they would miss out on this opportunity. After all, the duration of the dragons fighting for heritage was short. By the time they recovered, this matter would have already passed. What could they do? The path of cultivation was full of thorns. It was difficult for anyone to have a smooth journey. There were always ups and downs. It was very common for one's cultivation to not be smooth, or get injured during training. The more specific dark areas would not be described one by one. In short, it was just one sentence. Qin Fengyang wanted to take a piece of the cake of benefits for his students like Zhou Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong. It was not easy. Therefore, when Qin Fengyang knew that this year was the year of the dragons fighting for heritage, he immediately planned in secret. However, he called Zhou Xiaoduo many times, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not get through. No one answered. Qin Fengyang was very puzzled about this. However, he did not dare to call Yi Changqing, Wen Xingtian, and the others. Firstly, he was afraid that the news would be leaked. Secondly, he had not interacted much with Yi Changqing and the others. It was hard for him to be certain that these two old fellows would not have any ulterior motives. For example, after receiving the news, they could use their own connections to insert their own children into the organization. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian were the higher-ups of martial ancestor Gao Wu. Who knew if they were in cahoots with martial ancestor Gao Wu? As long as there was an exchange of benefits, Zhou Xiaoduo's fortuitous opportunity would immediately fail. As far as Qin Feng knew, this was a very normal thing. However, Qin Fengyang did not contact Li Chenglong, because he had thought about it over and over again. Regarding the dragons fighting for heritage, Qin Feng had placed his greatest hopes on Zhou Xiaoduo. It was even to the extent that it could be said that allowing one person to obtain the fortuitous encounter of a group of dragons, seizing the vein, was already the limit. If he rashly told Li Chenglong about this matter, then wouldn't he be asking for trouble, and causing trouble, or even hostility for no reason? If Li Chenglong had the intention to rebel because of this, then it would only cause the situation to escalate out of control. Yes, during this period of time, Qin Fangyang had collected too many information related to the dragons fighting for heritage. Naturally, he had come into contact with many past events that happened because of benefits, selfish desires, and various reasons. This matter also involved He Yuanyue's dying wish, causing him to be unusually sensitive. His various actions were very different from the past, but he cared too much. He was suspicious of everyone, and could not trust anyone. He was worried about his gains and losses. Qin Fangyang thought about it over and over again, and decided to call Zhuo Xiaoyan. Qin Fangyang could be suspicious of anyone, but he definitely would not suspect Zhuo Xiaoyan. Zhuo Xiaoyan would never harm Zhuo Xiaoduo, let alone snatch away Zhuo Xiaoduo's opportunity. Furthermore, Zhuo Xiaoyan was a girl, and also belonged to the Phoenix bloodline. There was no point in joining the dragons fighting for heritage. Qin Fangyang had considered all aspects thoroughly. Compared to Zhuo Xiaoduo, who could not be contacted, Qin Fangyang only called Zhuo Xiaoyan twice before contacting her. Qin Fangyang immediately asked about Zhuo Xiaoduo's movements. From Zhuo Xiaoyan, he found out that Zhuo Xiaoduo was participating in some kind of training, and would not be seen for a few months. Qin Fangyang felt that it was strange. Zhuo Xiaoduo had just broken through, and should be consolidating his foundation. Why would he suddenly participate in some kind of training? However, Qin Fangyang did not think too much about it. After all, Zhuo Xiaoyan vaguely told him that Zhuo Xiaoduo's training had been specially informed by a super important person. At that moment, Qin Fangyang excitedly told Zhuo Xiaoyan, "There's a piece of great news about Zhuo Xiaoduo's future." Then, he made an appointment to meet Zhuo Xiaoyan. What Qin Fangyang did not know was that the super important person, Bai Yunduo, was nearby. She had heard their conversation. The reason why she chose to monitor them was to be safe. She was afraid that Qin Fangyang would say too much and alert Zhuo Xiaoyan. That night, Qin Fangyang secretly went to Zhuo Xiaoyan's residence and talked about the dragons fighting for heritage. When Zhuo Xiaoyan heard about this opportunity, she was naturally very interested. It was not that Zhuo Xiaoyan was short-sighted, or that the Nine Heavens Pavilion did not tell her about this opportunity. It was because she knew that Zhuo Xiaoduo's Tower of Annihilation needed the dragon bloodline. This opportunity might be a dispensable opportunity for others, but for Zhuo Xiaoduo, it might be a great opportunity to take a big step forward. Therefore, she made an agreement with Qin Fangyang that she would inform Zhuo Xiaoduo once the specific time was confirmed. She was even thinking that she could make use of her connections with the higher-ups of the Nine Heavens Pavilion to help Zhuo Xiaoduo, to ensure that he would get a place. Zhuo Xiaoyan was really excited at this moment. She was sure that this dragons fighting for heritage would be very beneficial to Zhuo Xiaoduo. She definitely could not miss it. Qin Fangyang was also very excited. Only Baiyun Fairy, who was secretly eavesdropping on them, did not want to object to this dragons fighting for heritage, even though Baiyun Duo did not like the idea of dragons fighting for heritage. This was an opportunity for Zhuo Xiaoduo. Anyway, to her, she only needed to slightly influence this matter to ensure that Zhuo Xiaoduo would be able to enter smoothly. It was really not a big deal. After Qin Fangyang and Zhuo Xiaoyan made an agreement, they left secretly. Qin Fangyang was really a little paranoid now. Before he left, he repeatedly reminded Zhuo Xiaoyan not to spread the news before the quota was confirmed, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. Zhuo Xiaoyan naturally agreed wholeheartedly and promised. In the next 2 to 3 days, Qin Fangyang did not come. He only made 2 calls to say that everything was going smoothly, and that there were no accidents. Then, he made an agreement with Zhuo Xiaoyan that he had some clues now, and asked her to meet tomorrow night to pass the message. After all, electronic communication devices were too unsafe. Zhuo Xiaoyan did not dare to delay when she received the message. The next day, she ended her cultivation early, and went to the appointed place to wait for Qin Fangyang's arrival. Zhuo Xiaoyan was very happy when she heard from Qin Fangyang that there was great progress in the matter. She felt that this was another great opportunity for her to improve greatly. In order to thank Qin Fangyang for his efforts and contributions, She specially bought the best delicacies and took out a few jars of truly priceless spirit wine from her collection to thank Qin Fangyang. However, on this day, Zhuo Xiaoyan waited until the sky was completely dark, but Qin Fangyang did not appear. Until 8:30 p.m. Zhuo Xiaoyan finally could not help but call Qin Fangyang. However, the phone showed that he could not get through temporarily. At this moment, Zhuo Xiaoyan faintly felt that something was wrong. Qin Fangyang was not a person who did not give instructions. Even if there was an unexpected change, he should have taken the time to inform her. She forced herself to wait patiently for another half an hour. When she called again, he still could not get through. Zhuo Xiaoyan changed her mind and no longer hesitated. She flew up and flew to Ancestral Dragon High School to inquire about Qin Fangyang. However, the news that Zhuo Xiaoyan received was that Qin Fangyang had not come to work since the Spring Festival. No one in the entire Ancestral Dragon High School knew where Teacher Qin had gone and what his current whereabouts were. Zhuo Xiaoyan's heart suddenly thumped. Qin Fangyang had been in contact with her these days. He repeatedly mentioned that he was at Ancestral Dragon High School and did not leave during the Spring Festival. Ancestral Dragon High School gave her the information that he had not come to work since the Spring Festival. Where did this come from? However, Zhuo Xiaoyan investigated many people in Ancestral Dragon High School, including the higher-ups of Ancestral Dragon High School. The news that she received was shockingly consistent. She did not see him. She did not know where he had gone. She had not seen him for a long time. The matters related to Qin Fangyang before the Spring Festival were all vivid in her mind and could be investigated. However, since the Spring Festival, it was as if an invisible hand had erased all traces of Qin Fangyang's existence. This meant that Qin Fangyang had disappeared. Zhuo Xiaoyan keenly sensed that something was wrong. Moreover, the force behind all this was probably extremely powerful. She did not dare to be careless. She quietly left Ancestral Dragon High School. After returning, she immediately told Bai Yunduo about this matter and asked Bai Yunduo to find Qin Fangyang's whereabouts. Bai Yunduo did not think much of it at first. She only thought that Qin Fangyang had been schemed against because he had touched the interests of the dragons fighting for the heritage. However, it was at most a temporary restraint for Qin Fangyang. It should not have harmed his life. Bai Yunduo even thought of taking advantage of the situation. Zhuo Xiaoyan's whereabouts were unknown. She might not be able to catch up with the dragons fighting for the heritage. Perhaps she could use Qin Fangyang's disappearance to put this matter aside. However, after she used her own power to investigate thoroughly, she was shocked to find that Qin Fangyang's movements during this period of time did exist. However, they appeared to be in an inexplicable state of intermittent movements. He suddenly appeared in the east and suddenly in the west, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Although he rarely appeared in Ancestral Dragon High School, it could not be said that he had not worked since the Spring Festival. However, the reality was that all traces could not be found. Everyone's statements were exactly the same. Even when Bai Yunduo ordered a thorough investigation, she still found almost nothing. Bai Yunduo patrolled the world all year round. Naturally, she had her own team. After ordering a thorough investigation this time, she came to a conclusion that made Bai Yunduo dumbfounded. All the clues were cut off, and there was no possibility of further investigation. Among them, more than 30 students and 13 teachers of Ancestral Dragon High School were involved. The same clues were erased. It had disappeared completely. It was as if these people had never appeared in the world. What's more, many people around Qin Fangyang's dormitory also mysteriously disappeared. It was as if there was really a big hand that was gradually erasing all traces of Qin Fangyang in this world with the passage of time. Under such circumstances, even if Bai Yunduo's cultivation was very high, her actions were still one step slower. This one-step difference made her fall behind step by step. There was no progress at all. Even as time went by, all traces related to Qin Fangyang were being erased until there was no trace left. After confirming this situation, Bai Yunduo's scalp was about to explode. She really did not expect that under her order to investigate thoroughly, there would be less and less information. Such a bizarre and unforeseen event had actually occurred to him. It was simply inconceivable. However, this was the reality. Under the current situation, unless she used thunderous means and investigated on a large scale without regard for the consequences. Otherwise, there was no target to target at all. Bai Yinduo's heart suddenly sank. With her intuition, which had been experienced for many years, she understood that something big was about to happen. Zuoxiao's unknown life and death was already enough to set off stormy waves and turn the world upside down. Now Zuoxiao's first teacher, the teacher that Zuoxiaoduo valued the most besides his family, Qin Fengyang, was also missing. Bai Yinduo's heart began to tremble. Perhaps in the eyes of the so-called big shots, the disappearance of a high school teacher was not a big deal. However, the possible consequences of this matter were accumulating in monstrous waves. If there were really no results from this matter, Bai Yinduo knew deeply that it would not be strange if the whole of Shangjing City was wiped out. In fact, this matter had touched the bottom line. With the temperament of her master and mistress, they had always been the kind of people who said, "If the sky is in the way, cut it down with a sword. If the earth is in the way, cut it down with a sword." Under the strange circumstances of her son's disappearance, and her son's teacher's mysterious disappearance, what that couple could do was imaginable, but also unimaginable. For the time being, there were no suspects for Zuoxiao's disappearance. It was silent. The anger in her heart was at a delicate moment where she had nowhere to vent it. Qin Fengyang's disappearance provided a direction for this anger to be vented. As for Qin Fengyang's disappearance, anyone with a brain would be able to figure it out. To be able to wipe out the traces so quickly, so comprehensively, and so flawlessly, it must be the work of the higher-ups of the human race in the astral souls. There must be a huge force to do all this to be able to hide from Inspector Bai Yinduo's thorough investigation. This was something that anyone could have thought of. However, what kind of higher-ups of the human race could compare to the monstrous anger of the Inspector of Sky? This matter would inevitably evolve into a tsunami that would shake the history of the astral souls. This was already an undeniable and foreseeable earth-shattering change. Bai Yinduo did not dare to be negligent. She immediately called her husband Yin Zhonghu. Zuoxiao's teacher Qin Fengyang mysteriously disappeared in Shangjing. There is a huge force that erased all traces of Qin Fengyang in Shangjing. I suspect that this matter is related to the dragons fighting for the heritage. On the other side of the phone, after receiving this bad news, Yin Zhonghu immediately broke down without saying a word. He hysterically roared, "Motherfucker. What kind of people are they?" Chapter 1069. The king of Zulu instantly understood what was going on, but it was precisely because he understood the reason behind it that he was furious. As long as he thought about the matter of the dragons fighting for the heritage that his wife had mentioned, how could the matter not be clear? Thinking back to Qin Fengyang's previous efforts, he had finally been admitted into the ancestral dragon martial arts academy. His deep meaning was self-evident. He wanted to fight for a place for his student in the dragons fighting for the heritage. Now the phenomenon of the dragons fighting for the heritage had appeared, and the recent opportunity to snatch the heritage was about to arrive. And Qin Fengyang's whereabouts were unknown. Presumably, Qin Fengyang had exposed his purpose and touched someone's sensitive nerve. Therefore he was targeted, framed, or even assassinated. After all, everyone knew that Qin Fengyang was Zuoxiao's teacher, and the master-disciple relationship between them was even more popular. As the teacher of the ancestral Dragon Martial Arts Academy, Qin Fengyang was qualified to propose a place for the dragons fighting for the heritage. And with Zuoxiao's current reputation and status as the number one of the younger generation, it was certain that he would be qualified, and no one could object to it. But on the other hand, Zuoxiao's inevitable selection would undoubtedly touch the interests of some people. Moreover, Qin Fengyang's purpose was not just to get a place, Zuoxiao's inevitable selection, but the bottom line. But in this way, the conflict between Qin Fengyang and those whose interests were touched would be irreconcilable. Those bastards are becoming more and more unscrupulous and crazy. In the past few years, they made a fuss about the quota of the dragons fighting for the heritage. In order to stabilize the situation, We turned a blind eye to it. That's fine. But now at such a time they can still do such a thing. Unforgivable. The king of Zwolu's thoughts turned, and he understood the whole story of this strange matter. All the calculations and interests of all parties could be understood in an instant. Immediately, he made a call to Head Ding of the martial arts department. Head Ding was shocked when he received a call from the king of Zwolu. What was going on? Why did the big boss call? Could it be something serious that he hurriedly picked up? Your Majesty. Listen. The king of Zwolu said word by word. I will only say this once. Yes. Department head Ding's entire body trembled, as if he had been electrocuted. He stood up straight, and at the same time, he had a pen in his hand and paper ready. Just from the tone of this sentence, he was keenly aware of the seriousness of the matter and the level of their relationship that could be affected. The king of Zwolu had personally made the call. I'll only say this once. This was serious. In fact, it was so serious that he might not be able to shoulder it. The first thing is that the heaven inspecting minister and his wife will be coming out of their seclusion in 2 days. Yin Zhonghu said. Department head Ding was ecstatic. Really? That's great. The entire continent is looking forward to it. As for the second matter, I'm sure you've heard about it. Zhuo Xiaoduo of the Hidden Dragon High School has gone missing. It is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Department head Ding was stunned for a moment. For a moment, he could not wrap his head around it. Regarding the disappearance of Zhuo Xiaoduo of the Hidden Dragon High School, as the department head of the martial arts department, he was naturally well informed. Naturally, he knew that the Hidden Dragon High School was frantically searching for him. However, department head Ding did not take it too seriously. After all, it did not matter if a student was a genius or even a prodigy. The Astral Souls human clan and the Umno Alliance have been fighting for a long time. There were countless geniuses who died in the middle of the road. If he were to worry about everyone, his heart would have been broken a long time ago. Especially, Zhuo Xiaoduo's background was too shallow, and he had no background at all. Yes, the heavenly kings of the left and right had sent people to thoroughly search for Zhuo Xiaoduo. Although the effort was great, it was done in secret. Even department head Ding, who was at his level, was completely unaware of it. Otherwise he would not be so calm. The heavenly king of the left said in a cold voice, Listen, Zhuo Xiaoduo is the only son of the heaven inspecting minister and his wife. Clang! Department head Ding's phone fell on the table. There was a cracking sound on the other side of the phone. It was a glass of water that had fallen to the ground. Then, department head Ding picked up the phone with lightning speed. Your Majesty, you, I said, I will only say it once. The king of Zwolu said coldly, out of my mouth into your ears. Understood. I understand. Department head Ding's voice was trembling. He was trembling badly. The joy of the minister coming out of his seclusion instantly turned into fear. Pure fear. As a man with children and a family, how could he not understand the hidden weight of this sentence? Or rather, he understood it too well. The minister's son was missing. The minister's only son. And the minister and his wife were about to come out of their seclusion with invincible power and cultivation. If I am invincible and come out of my seclusion, and then someone tells me that my son was framed, kidnapped, missing, or dead, what would I do? Department head Ding put himself in their shoes and thought of many things in an instant. At this moment, department head Ding's mind was in a mess. He was at a loss. He only felt like his head was exploding with thunder one after another. Listen. The king of Zwolu said. The heavenly king of the right and I are investigating Zhuo Xiaoduo's disappearance. We don't need your help. But now there is a new situation. Zhuo Xiaoduo's teacher, Qin Fangyang, is currently teaching at Ancestral Dragon High School. It's this teacher Qin Fangyang. A few days before and after the new year, he also went missing. His whereabouts are unknown, and his life and death are unknown. This is not a surprising thing. However, the investigator personally investigated it thoroughly, but he still couldn't find the whereabouts of this Mr. Qin. Even the information and traces related to him were all erased. He left no trace and no trace. The meaning revealed by this is very thought-provoking. Minister Ding, you should understand what I'm talking about, right? The king of Zwulu paused and said coldly, "This teacher Qin is Zhuoxiaoduo's first teacher. It can be said that he is the most important person to Zhuoxiaoduo besides his parents. Let me make it clear to you. The reason he went missing is because of the quota for the dragon's battle for the heritage." Department head Ding felt like he was suffocating. His throat was making noises. He said dryly, "Heavenly King Zhua, what do you mean? Haven't I made it clear enough? Teacher Qin went missing because he wanted to fight for the quota for Zhuoxiaoduo. Then, do you need me to say who did it?" The king of Zwulu said indifferently, "I don't care about the details, and I'm not interested to know. It doesn't matter to me who did it. I'm just telling you, or in other words, warning you seriously. Qin Fangyang cannot die." "I understand." Beads of sweat the size of soybeans dripped down from Minister Ding's forehead, and he had an urge to relieve himself. The king of Zwulu's voice sounded like it came from hell. "The dragon's battle for the heritage is just a path to the top. We are already far away from that level, so we don't pay attention, don't care, and don't care. The Department of Martial Arts and the Ancestral Dragon High School can do whatever you want. Just treat it as a benefit for the Ancestral Dragon bloodline, the Department of Martial Arts, the children of the royal family, and the children of the big families in the capital. This is not a big deal. After all, the privileged class enjoys some benefits and some unspoken rules to make plans for the future. It's understandable. Wherever one goes, one's vision will follow. As the saying goes, the clouds cover one's eyes, but one's body is at the top. This is what it means. After all, no matter what society or dynasty, there will always be such unspoken rules. It's not an ideal to ask for the whole world to be peaceful, and for all the officials to be diligent and honest. It's just a delusion. But this time, some people unfortunately violated the taboo. What's even more unfortunate is that they just happened to run into a fatal timing. The evils they bring on themselves are the hardest to bear. These words come out of my mouth and into your ears. You know the consequences if you leak a single word. I understand everything. Department head Ding stood straight. He was sweating so much that his clothes were soaked. He was getting more and more impulsive. Right now, he could only feel his heart pounding, his blood pressure rising, and his eyes seeing stars. At this stage, I only have one request. Heavenly Kings was said slowly. Qin Fangyang cannot die. I understand. Heavenly Kings were repeated the words Qin Fangyang cannot die twice. The first time it was a simple introduction. The second time, he pointed out the pros and cons, pointed out the crux and emphasized it. On the other end, Heavenly King's voice was cold. If you understand, then do it. Before he could finish, he hung up. Department head Ding held the phone in his hand. He could feel cold sweat breaking out all over his body. His heart was pounding in his throat. Something big had happened. Something really big had happened. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. He put down the phone slowly and stood there in a daze for a while. Then, he rushed out and got a bucket of water. He activated the icy chi and turned it into ice cubes. He rubbed them on his face and neck. He couldn't make a decision now. If he made a decision now, he would be impulsive and do bad things. He couldn't make any mistakes in what he was about to do. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Once he made a mistake, he would be doomed. There was no room for luck. When he finally calmed down and regained his senses, he sat on the chair. The King's Wulu's meaning is clear. If we can find Qin Fangyang before the minister and his wife find out about this matter, and deal with this matter thoroughly, then there will still be room to turn the situation around, and we can save the lives of most people. If the minister and his wife find out that Qin Fangyang hasn't been found, or that he's already dead, the consequences will be unimaginable. Many people will die. The situation now is obvious. The timing of this incident is too subtle. The minister's son went missing first. His son's teacher went missing after he fought for his son's right to compete for the dragon's vein. Both of them are still missing. Once the two are connected, it's serious enough to pierce through the sky. Department head Ding organized his thoughts. As he thought carefully, he picked up the phone and made a call. To the brothers and sisters who are reading the original subscription, I want to explain. I really don't want to be sick. I really don't want injections. I also want to explode every day. But my body is like this. I can't help it. To the readers who are reading the pirated version silently, if you understand, then understand. If you don't, you can choose to read another book. What follows is a scolding. To the people who are reading the pirated version and scolding me, I reply, fuck you. It's up to you whether you want to read it or not. Who do you think you are? How much face have I given you? Did the heavens give birth to you wrongly? Why are you looking at the fruits of other people's labor so shamelessly and scolding them? All these years of compulsory education have taught you to be shameless? Chapter 1070. Minister Ding didn't call the leaders of ancestral dragon high martial arts. He knew that it would be useless and would leak the information. There were some things that could only be done and not said. If he made this call and alerted the enemy, it was very likely to cause Qin Fangyang's death. Even if Qin Fangyang was still alive, he would die after he made this call. Humans' criminal mentality was always like this. The first thing to do was to destroy the evidence and exonerate oneself. It had nothing to do with him. If you say it had something to do with him, show me the evidence. Even if you knew that this matter was too big and the consequences were beyond your ability to bear, you would still hope for a fluke. This was also the fundamental reason why people would only regret at the last moment. But it was too late for regrets. Minister Ding had to eliminate the possibility of such a situation happening. This matter had exceeded the scope of common sense and law. At this time he couldn't act rashly. He called his daughter Ding Xiulan. Xiulan, is it convenient for you to talk now? Yes. Well, are you alone? Is there anyone beside you? Ding Xiulan immediately sensed that something was wrong. Dad, what's the matter? Cough, come to me immediately. There's something at home. Minister Ding thought for a long time and decided to call his daughter over. If his daughter was careless and someone heard a word or two, the matter would inevitably be stirred up again. Okay. Immediately. Okay. While waiting for his daughter, Minister Ding went to take a shower. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and his clothes were already soaked. He had to take a shower and change his clothes. Just as the king of Zulu said, where one's position was, that's where one's vision was. And that's where one's psychological quality was. But this matter was too serious. Suddenly faced with extreme pressure from the top, the high-ranking elder of Minister Ding couldn't help but feel agitated. Thinking about the possibility of disaster, he didn't pee on the spot and only broke out in a few sweats. His psychological quality was quite strong. About 20 minutes later, Ding Xiulan arrived at Minister Ding's office. Dad, what's the matter? It's big, Minister Ding said. Let me ask you, do you know Qin Fangyang? Yes. How's your relationship? Not much. Oh, is there a grudge? Not really. My understanding of him is that Teacher Qin is a good teacher with excellent teaching standards. However, he has only been teaching in Ancestral Dragon High School for a short period of time, so it's hard to say that I have a thorough understanding of him. The place where he taught before was a small border city with few outstanding talents, so it's hard to judge. Ding Xiulan answered seriously. She knew her father's temper. Once he asked a person in such a serious manner, it was definitely not a small matter. Have you seen Qin Fangyang after the Spring Festival? I haven't seen him since the Spring Festival. Ding Xiulan said. Qin Fangyang and I aren't in the same grade. We're separated by a few departments. Moreover, we're not in the same system. With his current qualifications in Ancestral Dragon High School, he doesn't have any status. Naturally, he rarely comes into contact with me. Minister Ding looked into his daughter's eyes and said word by word. You've really never seen him before? Ding Xiulan shook her head. At least, I haven't seen him since the Spring Festival. Minister Ding stared at his daughter for a long time. After confirming that his daughter was not lying, he finally felt relieved. He waved his hand and smiled. If that's the case, then it's fine. Let's not talk about Qin Fangyang. He pondered for a moment and said, Do you know about the dragons fighting for the heritage? Ding Xiulan said, This matter is naturally classified as top secret to the outside world. However, it's not a secret to high-level teachers like us. Of course we know about it. Who's usually in charge of the dragons fighting for the heritage? Or rather, which leaders in the school are in charge of this? Although this matter isn't classified, it's still related to an opportunity. Therefore, a principal, a secretary, 8 vice principals, and more than a dozen directors are involved. Ding Xiulan said, "This has long become a routine. The dragons fighting for the heritage is one of the few opportunities that can be encountered. Everyone is coveting it. Even the major families have people in martial arts high school. However, there are only a few spots for the dragons fighting for the heritage. Every selection is extremely cautious. Firstly, quality must be ensured. Secondly, there must be as few sinners as possible. To the greatest extent, the situation of getting the brother's favor and losing the sister-in-law's favor will not happen." Minister Ding was gratified. Looks like the leadership of Ancestral Dragon High School is very thoughtful. Sigh, it should be said that they have to be thoughtful. There have been too many painful lessons in the past. Seeing that the dragons fighting for the heritage is about to start again, many families have already started to operate. Ding Xiulan smiled easily. However, that has nothing to do with me. I'm not in charge of school affairs. I'm only in charge of teaching students. Focus on your job. Not bad, not bad. Minister Ding smiled. Who are the principals, secretaries, and vice principals in charge of these? Tell me about them in detail. Ding Xiulan began to introduce them one by one. What families do these people have behind them? Are there any outstanding disciples in Ancestral Dragon High School among their families? Not bad. Looks like these principals are really not bad. Oh right, which families have been active recently? Who did they go? Who did they look for? What's the connection? Do you know? Okay. That's it? Is there anything else? Understood. Then which campus and class is Qin Fangyang in charge of? Which class is he teaching? How many students are there in the class? Oh, Ancestral Dragon First Year Sword Academy? Which class is it? No need to call, no need to ask. It's fine. Who is the leader in charge of Ancestral Dragon First Year? Who is in charge of the Sword Academy? Which family is he from? Does Qin Fangyang have any friends in school that he can talk to? Who is he closer to? That. At first, Minister Ding was still fine. His speech and actions were elegant. However, as the topic deepened, he simply transformed into 100,000 whys. One question after another revolved around Qin Fangyang, and he began to ask his daughter. There were many questions that Ding Xiulan herself couldn't answer, but he didn't let her call others to ask. Ding Xiulan quickly realized that in the hour of conversation between father and daughter, all the topics revolved around Qin Fangyang. However, her father expressed more than once that he had nothing to do with Qin Fangyang, and the topic had nothing to do with Qin Fangyang. Do you think I'm stupid? You call this nothing to do with him? If I wasn't already married, I would have suspected that you were looking for a son-in-law, that even when you interrogated my husband, you didn't ask so much, right? After this conversation, Ding Xiulan left in a daze. Only a few words echoed in her ears. Remember, the content of our conversation today cannot be known by anyone. Not even your husband can do it. I'm looking for you because of our family's matters. Our family's matters don't need to be known by outsiders. Other than us father and daughter, everyone else is an outsider. From now on, try your best not to stay in Ancestral Dragon High School. Even if you have to go, leave immediately after you're done and go home. Or, just do something else, and take on a few more missions. After you go back, if someone is curious about why I'm looking for you, you have to send me the person's name, identity, and background immediately after you've dealt with them. Lastly, you must remember this. Out of my mouth into your ears. Remember, other than us father and daughter, everyone else is an outsider. As Ding Xiulan thought about it, she felt a chill run down her spine. Her father had never used such a serious tone and expression when talking to her. It seems that the matter isn't small, but it's so big that it's beyond what father can handle. When Ding Xiulan walked out of the martial arts department, she stopped at the guardhouse for a while to calm her emotions. Then, she chatted with the guard at the door for a while before leaving. When she left, her steps were light, and her expression was normal. She could clearly feel that when she was in the guardhouse, her father was no longer in the office. She didn't know where he went. She looked up. Dark clouds were rolling in the sky. The spring festival had just ended. The weather was still cold and chilly, but the dark clouds in the sky had clearly gone from the rolling summer. The sky and earth changed color. Rumbled at the muffled thunder shook the mountains and rivers, causing them to tremble. Lightning streaked across the sky from east to west, splitting the sky and the earth into two. Ding Xiulan stared blankly at the sky for a long time and muttered, "It's not even the second day of the second lunar month. Why is there thunder already?" That Minister Ding gathered 36 people at lightning speed and went to the royal family's meeting room. The meeting included the principal and vice principal of Ancestral Dragon High School, as well as the family heads who explained their family backgrounds. They were all gathered in one place. "I've called all of you here today for a matter." Minister Ding had no intention of sitting down. He stood in front of the table with a cold expression. "Please speak, Minister. I don't want to waste time. I'll get straight to the point." Minister Ding said calmly, "There's a person called Qin Fangyang." The principal of Ancestral Dragon High School frowned and said, "Minister, what's the relationship with this Qin Fangyang? Since he went missing, many people have come to ask about him." "You don't need to know about his identity and background," Minister Ding said. "I only need to confirm one thing with you, or rather inform you of one thing. If Qin Fangyang is already dead, in other words, he can't appear in front of me alive before the dawn of tomorrow, then I can very responsibly inform you that all 36 people here, including your families, will not be able to survive. Not even a chicken or dog will be left alive. Not even an inch of grass will be left behind. You don't need to speak now, and you don't need to react. Just listen to me. The person who did this must be one or a few of you. If you don't want to die, find the person who did this as soon as possible. Also, you must find Qin Fangyang as well. If Qin Fangyang is already dead, then I hope that you can revive him before 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, intact, and send him to me." Chapter 1071. If you can't do it, or if you can't do it already, I advise you to take poison or commit suicide before 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's not a bad way to deal with it. At least you can die more comfortably and retain your last bit of dignity. Minister Ding said indifferently. "Please note that I'm not the one informing you. It's the King of Zwulu's order. I'm just a messenger. I don't know anything else." The 36 people turned pale with fright. At the same time they stood up. "Minister Ding, where did this come from?" Minister Ding said indifferently. "I've said that I don't know anything. The only thing I can tell you is that the good days of controlling the dragons, snatching the heritage are over. Everyone, please cherish these last 10 hours. Perhaps some of you will still be alive after 10 hours, but I can tell you very responsibly that some people have yet to vent their anger. It's not because you don't deserve to die." After Minister Ding finished speaking, he walked out of the room. "Minister," an old man with a fierce look said anxiously, "we don't even know what happened. Where do you want us to start?" Minister Ding stood at the door and said indifferently, "Master Lu, or rather Minister Lu, it's useless for you to tell me anything now. I don't know anything, and I don't want to know. Sigh. It's pardonable if others say they don't know. But if even you don't know, what's the point of Shangjing Darknet's existence? I've already overstepped my boundaries. That's all I have to say. Everyone take care of yourselves. Whether you can find the person or not, you don't have to tell me anymore. I'm not directly in charge. If you find the person, you don't have to explain it to me. You just have to send the person to me. Everything else has nothing to do with me. I don't want to know anything. I'm just a messenger." The principal of Ancestral Dragon High School said angrily, "Minister Ding, your sudden words have left us in a mess. Can you explain it more clearly? We'll be grateful for your kindness." Minister Ding was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. He turned to look at the sky. This was because on the other side of the horizon, 2 rays of light, one white and one blue, suddenly shot up into the sky. In an instant, the dark clouds in the sky were all dispersed, and the clear air of the clouds reappeared, filling the world. An aura of excitement and longing soared into the sky and swept across the land of the astral souls. In the entire Star Soul continent, countless people felt their spirits lifted at this moment. It was an indescribable feeling of comfort and refreshment. Countless martial artists suddenly felt their minds clear up at this moment. Their cultivation base also increased accordingly. The once rugged path of cultivation suddenly became a smooth path. A cool breeze suddenly blew. In the blink of an eye, it had already blown a great distance away. Everyone in the meeting room stared with their mouths agape. Other than the evergreen plants outside the window, the originally withered grassland suddenly melted, and the ice layer melted. Wisps of green grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few seconds, there were already extremely delicate by flowers swaying in the wind. At the same time, all the plants turned green, sprouted and branched. This is a miracle. Everyone even forgot about Minister Ding's warning just now. They forgot about their fear, and only shock was left. Minister Ding stood at the door in a daze, looking at everything outside. Spring returned to the earth, and all things grew. For some reason his heart was cold. Only he knew the reason for this. Shock. Perhaps, if you can't hand over the person after a day, you'll be even more shocked. Among so many people, there were definitely innocent people in Qin Fangyang's matter. However, for so many years, the ones who controlled the dragons to snatch the heritage were these people. There were very few who didn't benefit from it. Everyone. Farewell. Minister Ding strode away. In the Astral Souls continent, strange phenomena occurred frequently. After all, two super mighty figures had come out of seclusion. The Heavenly Tao was shocked. The Tao League and the Umno Alliance, which were adjacent to the Astral Souls continent, also changed. In the Tao League, the number one person in the Tao League, Taoist Lei, stood with his hands behind his back and looked into the distance. The wind and clouds changed drastically, and a trace of gloominess appeared in his eyes. It was a complicated emotion of watching a junior rise and watching himself fall. He watched as the person who he did not even look at previously rose to a height that he had dreamed of, but had worked hard for his entire life. The Sky Patrol Minister couple has returned from the mortal world. Today they have officially come out of seclusion. Seeing the sudden change in the situation, Taoist Lei, who was desolate, told everyone the truth. Actually, there was no need for him to say it. The other Taoists were also peak experts in the world. How could they not understand this reality? They were all silent for a long time. Everyone felt an inexplicable pressure pressing down on them, pressing down on their hearts. The left minister has a bad temper, and has always been vengeful. This time he has come out of seclusion. The husband and wife have worked together to rule the world. Taoist Lei said calmly. The Tao League didn't do anything during this period of time, right? He said it very vaguely, but everyone understood the true meaning of this sentence. You didn't do anything to make this lunatic angry, right? They were both lunatics, but Zhuangchang was not the flood. The flood which had come out of seclusion and made a shocking breakthrough. But there was no need to worry. Because the flood witch's state of mind had been tempered thousands of times, honed over countless years, and accumulated countless experiences to achieve the invincible state she was now. On the other hand, this minister was quite different. Nominally, his battle prowess was almost equal to that of the great flood shaman. However, he had just come out of his closed-door training and lacked the necessary tempering. It was like a peerless divine weapon that had just come out of the furnace. It needed the baptism of battle and the sacrifice of blood to be able to live up to its name. In other words, he needed a sharpening stone. Taoist Lei naturally did not want the Tao League to become the Sky Patrol Minister's whetstone at this time. Then the consequences would only be too miserable. No, we didn't provoke this lunatic. The Taoists were all speechless. Back then, Zhuangchang had made a name for himself at a young age. When he reached the Tao integration realm, he was unruly. However, as long as he saw them, he would be very honest and obedient. In order to gain something from the Tao League and obtain some martial techniques, he had even thought of many ways to flatter them. However, ever since this guy broke through the Tao integration realm and reached the primordial chaos, He was on the verge of reaching the peak of this world. His attitude was no longer as respectful as before. On the surface, he was still acceptable and gave them some face. However, when he broke through the primordial chaos and reached the Luo heaven realm, it could be said that he turned hostile and began to provoke them constantly. From then on, he even began to have a desire to fight the Flood Witch. When he reached the later stages of the Luo heaven realm, this desire to fight was completely formed, and he became another giant in the 3 continents. This caused the balance between the 3 continents to reach an unprecedented period of stability. However, to everyone's surprise, many years later, this guy followed his wife and transformed into the mortal world. Previously, Feng Yin and Feng Yin had set up an assassination attempt on Zhuo Xiaoduo. They had tried to break Zhuo Zhangchang and his wife's idea of transforming into the mortal world and experiencing the realm. As long as they succeeded, it would be enough to affect their state of mind and greatly reduce the effect of their transformation into the mortal world. However, at that time, due to certain reasons, the people they sent were slightly weaker. Of course, this was under the condition that they did not succeed. They felt that their original judgment was shallow. If they had succeeded naturally, they would not have said so. After all, according to common sense, the people they sent out would have been buried together with Zhuo Xiaoduo with his strength at that time. However, no matter what the process was, they did not succeed in the end. The Dao League also paid a considerable price because of this. Now Zhuo Zhangchang and his wife had returned from transforming into the mortal world and caused a change in heaven and earth. Obviously, they had made an amazing breakthrough and should have reached the chaotic realm. Then, the couple's strength level was at the level that could suppress the world. Thinking of the past, scenes of the Dao League's 7 swords flashed before his eyes. He was naturally full of emotions and sighed endlessly. Now, it was no longer his time. He was not as strong as others. A feeling of nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity arose spontaneously. That's good, Thunder Taoist said. Now we are still in an alliance. Some conflicts should be avoided if possible. Don't cause any more trouble. Understood. No alliance. The Flood Witch stood at the top of the mountain and looked to the east. Her eyes were clear. He clearly felt the shocking enlightenment and the soaring fighting spirit in the unseen world. He could not help but smile. I'll wait for you to sharpen your sword, then I'll go. Be there or be square. He muttered to himself. His messy hair danced in the wind. However, there was a kind of gratification on his face. He was gratified that an old friend understood him, and an old rival was evenly matched. When he broke through, he sent a touch of enlightenment over. And after the other party broke through, he sent back his own enlightenment. Mysterious cause and effect. I don't know you, you don't know me either. After all, there was always a cause and effect, and vice versa. Interesting, it's really interesting. The Flood Witch only had a faint smile on her face. Transforming into the mortal world. So that's it. We thought we were separated from our original selves. But in fact, it's just another way of existence. The mortal world is full of changes, birth, aging, illness, and death, giving birth to children a perfect life. So that's it. However, our paths are different after all. I'm walking the path of a lonely powerhouse. You're walking the path of perfection. It was hard to conclude who was better and who was worse. Let's go and see. I'll wait for you. In a secret place in the continent of astral souls, Yu Xingchen was restlessly pacing back and forth. His face was full of worry, but he was trying hard to keep his mind calm. Suddenly, he felt that somewhere behind him, an abundant and endless energy suddenly burst out. It rushed up like a tsunami. Boundless vitality instantly wrapped around him. At this moment, Yu Xingchen felt that the internal injuries that he had accumulated over the years and the loss of his origin were all healed in an instant. The power that shook heaven and earth erupted behind him. Breakthrough. Perfect breakthrough. Chapter 1072. The itchy feeling on his body came clearly, and it was indescribably comfortable. Brother. Yu Xingchen muttered to himself. He knew that this was his brother, giving him a benefit with the help of the momentum of heaven and earth when he was breaking through. This was the lingering charm of the Great Way, the momentum of heaven and earth. This was not an ordinary thing. If it were not for Zhuo Chonglu's intention and the couple's joint effort, he, as an outsider, would never have been able to grasp it. Actually, this old brother of mine has always seen and remembered the pain and suffering that I've suffered for so many years. So at this time, they were making up for it and giving it to him. In this regard, Yu Xingchen only felt touched and warm in his heart. But then he became even more worried. What should he do when he came out of seclusion? Xiao Duo and Yu Xingchen. A tremor seemed to rise in the depths of everyone's heart. They could clearly feel that something seemed to be broken. What was more direct was that it seemed that the cocoon that had been troubling the moth had broken open. A moth quietly flew out, spread its gorgeous multicolored wings, and flapped them to take flight. The shackles were gone. From then on, the mountains were high and the rivers were wide. Behind Yu Xingchen, the endless space suddenly shattered and turned into a huge black hole, slowly rotating. In the black hole, a colorful mottled, indescribably mysterious and magnificent, suddenly appeared. And two figures from small to large in the black hole seemed to emerge from the void and floated out. One of them was handsome in a green robe, and the other was as white as snow, beautiful and peerless. It was Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding, the couple, who had returned to the mortal world. Brother Yu, you've worked hard. Zhuo Chonglu smiled, took his wife's hand, and stood in front of Yu Xingchen. It's what I should do. Congratulations, you've finally mastered the divine skill. Yu Xingchen's expression was complicated. Hey, what divine skill did you say? Zhuo Chonglu laughed and said, after the real breakthrough, you will know that the road ahead is still endless. Now, you just broke away from the original shackles and embarked on the starting point of a new road. That's all. That's great. Yu Xingchen said sincerely. It's a great thing after all. Wu Yuding was attentive and felt that Yu Xingchen's expression was not right. Yu Xingchen's attitude should be overjoyed after the couple's breakthrough, but now, his expression was a little complicated. Brother Yu, what's the matter? Wu Yuding asked. Yu Xingchen, there's something. Yu Xingchen, Yu Xingchen said. Yu Xingchen. Brother Yu Xingchen. Zhuo Zhonglu smiled faintly. To make Brother Yu so troubled, it has to be about little Duo and little Nian, right? What happened to them? Zhuo Chonglu was smart enough to think of this in an instant. Other than his son and daughter, there was probably nothing else, no one, that could make Yu Xingchen so hesitant. Wu Yuding frowned. Looking at Yu Xingchen's hesitant expression, a strong sense of uneasiness grew. Xiao Duo did he get into trouble? Well, it's like this. It was fine at first, but after the spring festival Xiao Duo suddenly disappeared. We're looking for him. Yu Xingchen sighed and looked at Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding with a guilty expression. Disappeared? Wu Yuding's eyes slowly narrowed. Disappeared? What day did he go missing? Where did he go missing? What day is it today? How many days has it been? He went missing on the first day of the spring festival. Today is the 17th day of the Lunar New Year. At this moment, Yu Xingchen was surrounded by a sense of suffocation. However, since things had come to this, he didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly explained the matter in detail, leaving nothing out. This included how he had investigated and how he had searched for them. He explained everything in detail to Zhang Xian. In the end, he said, the conclusion we have now is that to be able to do this without leaving a trace, the attacker should be at least a heavenly king-level master. However, we have no clue who did it. Zhuo Chonglu's face gradually darkened. His eyes slowly narrowed, becoming as sharp as needles. Missing on the first day of the Lunar New Year, the 17th day of the Lunar New Year. During this period, he had been missing for a total of 16 days. This was not a short period of time. What should and shouldn't have happened should have already happened. Is it the Dao League's rhyme? Or the Umno Alliance's rhyme? Zhuo Chonglu asked word by word. Rhyme. It was a rhyme that only peak masters could possess. Each of them had their own characteristics. As long as the time was short, as long as the master made a move, it could be felt. It's neither. No, I can't feel it. Yu Xingchen's face was a little pale. He felt guilty and uncomfortable in his heart. His old friend was in seclusion, but he didn't protect his son well. Feng. Wu Yuding's pretty face had turned pale. There was an endless storm brewing in her eyes. I want to go and take a look. In front, behind, to the left, and to the right, pieces of space were shattering inch by inch. The space cracks crisscrossed and appeared one after another. Wu Yuding had a mottled feeling that she was about to collapse. She came out full of joy, but she was greeted with the news of her son's disappearance. Wu Yuding was about to explode on the spot. What did it mean to be missing for 16 days? If it was an ordinary person who went missing for 16 days, there might be hope of finding him. However, with the status of the couple, the disappearance of their child for 16 days was almost synonymous with complete death. Sister-in-law, Yu Xingchen just said 2 words. Wu Yuding let out a deep snort and tore the space apart. Her slender body drilled into the crack and disappeared without a trace. I'll go and take a look too. Zhuo Chonglu also tore the space apart and went after her. Zhuo Chonglu's concern for his son was no less than Wu Yuding's. Even though he could remain calm on the surface, his heart was already in turmoil. Even Yu Xingchen could feel the sharp killing intent clearly. He couldn't help but feel his hair stand on end. I have to go and take a look too. Sigh. Although I can't stop them, we can at least do something together. Yu Xingchen stomped his feet and tore the space apart to chase after them. Feng Hai, the king of Zwilu, and the heavenly king of the right were looking at the strange phenomenon in the sky. Both of them were stunned and felt uncomfortable all over. They twisted their bodies and felt that their bodies were a little wrinkled. They seemed to be tied up. They looked at each other and saw the anxiety in each other's eyes. They were like 2 little quails that sensed the coming of a storm. He came out of seclusion. He finally came out of seclusion. Oh, this is really ... Since he came out of seclusion, he must be the first to know the news. Then the next step must be here. Yu Dongtian's face was pale. He trembled and said, Little Hu, you alone are enough here. I'm redundant here. The battle at the front line is so intense. I have to go and take charge. Yin Zhonghu grabbed him tightly. Want to run? Is there such a good thing in the world? Today, if we live, you'll accompany me. If we die, you have to accompany me. I've been your scapegoat for so many years. And you want to run away today? Brother, let go of me. Brother, we'll share blessings and misfortunes. Chapter 1073. Yu Dongtian was on the verge of tears. Xiao Hu, we've been brothers for so many years. I've always treated you as my own brother. Please be kind and let me go. I really don't want to see Aunt Sua. Please let me go. I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life. Yin Zhonghu looked at him sympathetically. No, he looked behind Yu Dongtian. Then he bowed. Greetings, mistress. Yu Dongtian's face froze. Brother, don't joke about this. As he slowly turned around, the most terrifying and horrifying scene entered his eyes. He saw Wu Yuding, who was dressed in white, looking at him with deep eyes. Yu Dongtian broke down on the spot, but he still managed to say instinctively, Aunt Sua, I miss you so much. Get lost. Wu Yuding didn't have the time to be angry with Yu Dongtian. She slapped him aside and spun him like a top. Then, she frowned and looked at Yin Zhonghu. Who too? What's wrong with your little junior brother? Before she could finish her sentence, Zhuo Chonglu appeared from thin air. Then Yu Xingchen came out as well. Yin Zhonghu was really nervous. His face was pale, and his cheeks were trembling. Yu Dongtian quickly stopped spinning and went behind his father. He diligently massaged his father's shoulders and said softly, Dad, protect me later. You little brat. You're right. You're looking for your dad now. My dad is omnipotent. You think too highly of me. I can't even protect myself now. Yu Xingchen looked defeated. Yu Dongtian's face was sullen as he stopped rubbing his shoulder. Keep massaging. You might not have the chance in the future, Yu Xingchen said. Yin Zhonghu started to explain. He felt unprecedentedly depressed and told her everything that had happened recently. The more Wu Yuding listened, the angrier she became. The more she listened, the more she couldn't hold it in. But more than that, she became more flustered. She could only feel her heart pounding, and her delicate body was on the verge of collapsing. This was originally a situation that absolutely shouldn't have occurred. With her and Zhuo Zhonglu's Hongqian transformation, and their joint breakthroughs, they'd already reached the peak of the world. No matter if it was in terms of strength or mental state, such a negative situation still occurred at this moment, and it could only prove the severity of the current unforeseen event. Zhuo Zhonglu was speechless. In a flash, he entered the villa. Then, he floated out and used the Tianyuan escape technique to search along the way to Phoenix City. Zhuo Zhonglu's Tianyuan escape technique was naturally not something that Zhuo Xiaoduo or Zhuo Xiaonian could compare to. He returned in just 15 minutes. However, his brows were deeply furrowed. Obviously, he didn't find anything. He couldn't sense anything with his divine soul. Looking at Wu Yuding's pale face, Zhuo Zhonglu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Don't panic about this. We haven't reached the point of despair yet. Don't forget who we are." "Who are we?" Wu Yuding said angrily. "How special are we?" "Yes, you're the sky inspecting minister." "That's amazing." Zhuo Zhonglu smiled bitterly and said, "What sky inspecting minister? What I want to say is, we're Xiao Duo's biological parents. It's said that mother and son are connected by heart. Father and son are inseparable. This bond of blood and flesh is not something that can be separated by any space. Previously, when we were in seclusion, did you feel panic? Did you feel that kind of shock and trepidation?" "No, I didn't either." "Then I can say with certainty that there's still hope for this matter." Zhuo Zhonglu was worthy of the reputation of being the #1 man in the astral souls. Even in the face of such a terrible situation, with Air's whereabouts unknown and her life or death unknown, he could calmly analyze the situation and put forward the pros and cons. His words weren't purely to comfort Wu Yuding or to convince himself. Instead, he felt that what he said really made sense. If their son had really met with misfortune, with their divine senses and their feelings for Zhuo Xiaoduo, it was impossible for them not to feel anything strange. With this said, Wu Yuding also pondered. Although Zhuo Zhonglu's words were very mysterious and unsubstantiated, Wu Yuding really felt the same as Zhuo Zhonglu. There was no abnormal feeling of trepidation, that she immediately felt a little relieved and said, "Don't talk nonsense with me. Hurry up and find my son. If you can't find him, I'll teach you a lesson." Zhuo Zhonglu's face twitched, and his indifferent face became slightly distorted. I just came out of seclusion like you, okay? Why do you want to teach me a lesson? I can also say this to you. Hurry up and find your son. If you can't find him, I'll teach you a lesson. It's just that I don't dare to say it. But why did you suddenly change the topic to me? Who did I offend? Well, does Xiaonian know about this? Wu Yuding asked. Yunduo especially went to Shangjing and stayed by Xiaonian's side. She didn't dare to let her know about this. If she panics, the situation will be even more difficult to deal with, Yun Zhonghu said. Wu Yuding breathed a sigh of relief. She felt that Yun Zhonghu and his wife handled it well. How could she not know the temperament and thoughts of her daughter and daughter-in-law? If she knew the truth, she would definitely do everything she could to find Zhuo Xiaoduo and make the situation even more chaotic. Then she frowned and pondered, this. Who did it? Zhuo Zhonglu was also pondering. The person who could do such a thing was definitely a top expert. However, there were only so many top experts in the world. They could be counted on one's fingers. Who was it? Moreover, it was against his own son. In addition to the means, it also required courage. At this moment, Yun Zhonghu's phone suddenly rang. Quietly asked the holy monk, "Is my daughter beautiful? Is my daughter beautiful?" Cough cough. Yun Zhonghu picked up the phone awkwardly. "It's Yunduo." Then he picked up the phone. Bai Yunduo's voice clearly came from the phone. "There's still no news about Qin Fengyang's disappearance. There's no progress at all. I'm really angry and want to do something." Yun Zhonghu was very embarrassed. Cough cough. "What's going on?" "Mr. Qin went missing to help little junior brother get a place. These bureaucrats in Shangjing are still trying to shirk responsibility, thinking that they can get away with it. Ahoo! I'm worried that something big will happen when Master and his wife come back. Those people are annoying, but if we kill them all at once, it's inevitable that there will be chaos. Yun Zhonghu. We have to be careful about this. Little junior brother went missing. And now little junior brother's teacher also went missing. Is this really such a coincidence? Bai Yinduo's angry voice came. This time, Shang Jing needs to be cleaned up. This is too much. Yin Zhonghu coughed. Yes. After saying a few more words, Bai Yinduo hung up the phone angrily. On the other side, Bai Yinduo hung up the phone and muttered to herself. I knew this idiot would think too much and not dare to say it. Master and his wife should be by his side right now. They must have heard it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coughing and doing something like that. If you don't dare to say it, I'll say it. Let Master and his wife teach these vermin a lesson. What's there to be afraid of? Astral souls. I don't dare to talk about other things, but there are plenty of talents in the human race. On the other side, Yin Zhonghu put down the phone and sighed. How could he not know that he couldn't hide it anymore? He had noticed just now that as Bai Yunduo spoke, Wu Yuding's face, which had just calmed down a little, turned angry again. Moreover, it was getting worse and worse. What's going on? Cough, it's like this. Yin Zhonghu braced himself and told her everything about Qin Fangyang. Why didn't you say such an important thing just now? You kept hemming and hawing. Without Duoer's call, did you want to keep it a secret? Wu Yuding snorted and said. Or are you worried that Master and his wife will be impulsive and cause trouble for you, the king of Zwulu? No, I definitely didn't mean that. I've already asked Minister Ding to investigate this thoroughly. Moreover, I promised to give him some time. So he won't just do that. Yin Zhonghu knelt down and admitted his guilt with his head lowered. So, we haven't done anything for so many years? Wu Yuding said with emotion. Dad, it seems that the world has forgotten about us. Zuochanglu sighed softly. For the first time, a melancholy expression appeared on his face. Damn it, don't you think we're outdated? We can't keep up with the times? Isn't it said that people who can't keep up with the times are destined to be forgotten by the world? Or have we already been forgotten? Their words were calm and even a little playful. They didn't show any signs of anger. However, Yin Zhonghu, Yu Dongtian, Yu Xingchen, and the others felt cold sweat break out. Even their hair stood on end. In front of them, the couple had been suppressing their temper, and it was finally about to explode. Most likely, they had found a breakthrough. You guys stay here and continue to look. Zuochanglu said warmly. Let's go to Shangjing to take a look. It seems that they need us more. Yes. Yin Zhonghu was full of regret. As expected, things were still developing in this direction. Yu Dongtian watched as Zuochanglu and his wife tore through space and disappeared. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. They left. It's good that they left. That means they didn't notice me. Everything else is not important. That's great. Just as he was rejoicing, he heard Wu Yuding's voice. Little Yu'er, when this is over, we'll settle the accounts between us. You should pray that this matter will go smoothly. If Xiao Duo can be found successfully, you should thank him. Yu Dongtian looked at the void and wanted to cry but had no tears. What he meant was that Yu Dongtian said with a sad face. Brother, work harder to find him. Yin Zhonghu rolled his eyes. Shangjing was calm. After Minister Ding issued the order, Bai Yunduo's huge spiritual power unilaterally monitored the 36 people targeted. Any movement or any order issued to the outside world would be monitored by Bai Yunduo. However, what Bai Yunduo couldn't help but admire was that this group of people were really old foxes. None of them were flustered by Minister Ding's threat. They still did what they usually did. It was as if they didn't take Minister Ding's warning to heart at all. Of course, there were also some people who gathered together to discuss, because they were secretly afraid. Who did this? Minister Ding doesn't look like he's just trying to scare people. I'm afraid this matter is going to blow up. Don't let the fish in the moat get involved. I'm hoping that those greedy guys can come forward themselves now. It's difficult. Why did Qin Fangyang go missing? It's said that it's for the quota of the dragons to fight for the heritage. It's rare. Who do you think it is? It's difficult. Bai Yunduo heard no less than 20 conversations like this. There were 36 people, and it seemed like every one of them was very curious and scared. This also meant that none of the 36 people showed any flaws. In other words, there was no murderer. Bai Yunduo knew that the suspect was among these people. However, with her experience and eyesight, she couldn't tell who was abnormal. This was very thought-provoking. The principal and a few higher-ups of Ancestral Dragon High School immediately held a meeting to discuss this matter after they returned. The principal was the first to fly into a rage. Qin Fengyang's matter must be done by someone from our school. It's not the fault of someone from our school. To erase all traces, such a brilliant method. How could it be easy? But why did he erase all traces of Qin Fengyang's appearance after the Spring Festival? It's terrifying to think about these things. The principal slammed the table. If this matter isn't resolved satisfactorily, everyone will be unlucky. No one can think of staying out of this matter. This matter definitely has something to do with Ancestral Dragon High School. You've controlled the dragons to fight for the heritage for so many years, and seized so many benefits. Are you still not satisfied? How much longer do you want to control it? The principal's angry roar reverberated like thunder in the sealed meeting room. Qin Fengyang's actions are obviously hoping to get a spot for Zhou Xiaoduo from Hidden Dragon High School. As for Zhou Xiaoduo, even if Qin Fengyang didn't show up, I would definitely leave a spot for him. The continent's #1 genius. If even he can't be selected, what credibility does our school's dragons to fight for the heritage have? Just for this reason, you got rid of Qin Fengyang. How ridiculous. Are all of you brainless? The principal's words and actions were getting more and more agitated. Back then, when Zhou Xiaoduo gave Ding Xilan the king beast spirit meat, the principal had lamented for a long time. It was a great loss for the ancestral dragon that such a righteous child didn't come to the ancestral dragon martial school. At that time, the principal had even said to Ding Xilan, if this child can maintain this momentum during the dragons to fight for the heritage and doesn't overage, you must remind me when the time comes. His words were still ringing in his ears, but this unforeseen event happened. While the principal was roaring, the people below were expressing their innocence. We didn't know about this at all. In the face of such ignorance, the principal was at his wits' end. Since you all say that you don't know, then let's leave it to fate. This is a matter supervised by the Heavenly King. There will definitely be a result. As for the consequences, everyone knows. One of the vice principals said, Principal, even if the Heavenly King is supervising this matter, shouldn't there be some reason? We didn't do anything. Not to mention evidence. We don't even have a clue. How can we be killed for no reason? Is there such a logic in this world? That's right. You want to kill us without any evidence. Principal, what kind of society is this? As the saying goes, catch the thief with the stolen goods, catch the adulterer in bed. Even in the ancient times when civilization wasn't widespread, there was no such thing as killing without teaching. Moreover, we've worked hard all our lives. How can we be implicated and killed so casually? The principal heaved a long sigh. It's the same every time. I hope this time, it's as optimistic as you think. I've said what I should say. I won't tell you to look out for yourselves. Anyway, I'm leaving it to fate. Do you all really think that what you've done is so flawless? The principal sneered and pointed at them one by one. Naive. Childish. Chapter 1074. In the face of the headmaster's angry roar, the vice headmasters and the senior officials all looked innocent. We really didn't do it. It had nothing to do with us. Bai Yunduo, who had been monitoring and eavesdropping, showed a cold smile. Why are so many people still superstitious about the so-called evidence? Why are you so sure that you can't kill without evidence? Reason. What is the so-called reason in front of a person with a big fist? The bigger fist, the bigger the reason. Naive. I can't help it. I'm going to do it. Bai Yunduo muttered to herself. This matter was not as simple as patrolling the continent. There was a victim. This was not a case, this was a grudge. The reason why Bai Yunduo didn't do it was because of this. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. At this moment, suddenly, the space in front of her was distorted. Starlight shone, and the space shattered. Then two figures appeared. Although their faces still retained the appearance when they transformed into the mortal world, Bai Yunduo could still recognize that it was her master and mistress who had arrived. Bai Yunduo hurriedly stood up respectfully. Hello, master and mistress. She was a little shocked that her master and mistress had come so quickly. It seemed that the two elders really attached great importance to this matter. Well, where's Nianer? Junior sister is in seclusion in her place. It's 530 meters from here, Bai Yunduo said. Well, you handled Nianer's matter appropriately. Tell me about the situation here. It's like this. Bai Yunduo explained in detail. During the words, she naturally added some of her own understanding and emotional bias. No evidence. Haha, no evidence. Indeed, we can't convict people. Zhuo Changlu laughed and said. However, although we can't convict people without evidence, we can still kill people. Wu Yuding said coldly. Teacher Qin's whereabouts are unknown because of Xiao Duo. As parents, if we don't give justice, how can we live up to Teacher Qin's kindness? No evidence. Then we'll have to create evidence and seek justice. Even if we can't create any evidence, it's not a big deal to kill a few people. Wu Yuding's words were laced with the aura of a devil who had no regard for human life. Even a heavenly king stage powerhouse like Bai Yunduo could not help but keep quiet out of fear. She had almost forgotten that apart from being the wife of her master, the Sky Patrol minister, she was also the only daughter of the demon ancestor Lei Changtan. Previously, when she was by the minister's side, she rarely revealed her demonic nature. Before she became the minister's wife, she was also known as the witch. However, she couldn't help but admire her master's wife's methods. This method was the best method to deal with those cunning old foxes, a supreme method. That kind of old thing relied on the fact that he did things flawlessly and was good at wiping out traces of relevant evidence. He wanted to find evidence that could be used against him. If he tried to reason with them and deal with them by law, he would only get himself into trouble. Since he could not figure out the way to deal with them by reason, then he could only use strength to reason with them. What else could it be? Those people had been at ease in the rear for too long, and had forgotten that this was a world where martial arts were respected. The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. Only when the fist was strong enough, the bigger the power. It was very helpless. Although civilized society had been around for many years, there were some things that could only be done without reason. If they were reasonable, it would be absolutely difficult to do certain things. Zhuo Changlu said matter-of-factly, finding evidence is quite simple. Guest, since that's the case, let's do it. Then he said, Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu, are you going, or should I go? Wu Yuding pondered for a moment and said, I should go. I'm just a little woman, and do things without any scruples. However, I'm afraid that if I really go, I'll kill everyone. Those involved will die, but it's inevitable that there will be accidental killings. If you go personally, there will be less killing. Zhuo Changlu pondered for a few breaths and said faintly, All right. Pay attention, we must save Teacher Qin. Wu Yuding reminded, Teacher Qin has not only helped our family, but he also has feelings for us. This kindness must not be forgotten. Moreover, this involves whether Puppy's life is complete or not. Everything else can be discussed, but we must ensure Teacher Qin's safety. We must save Teacher Qin. Don't worry, I won't make a mistake on this. It's midnight now, the dawn is gone. Wait for the dawn to come. Didn't Hua promise to give those people some time? Don't let our child slap his own mouth. Okay. A few hours passed by in the blink of an eye as they meditated. Early in the morning, 7:30 a.m. The weather was clear, and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. The breeze was cool and the sun was bright. It was a beautiful day. How about this time? Just right. Okay, I'm going. Zhuo Changlu stood with his hands behind his back, and his body slowly disappeared. Mistress, don't you want to rest for a while? Bai Yunduo was very excited. She had benefited a lot in these few hours. As a heavenly king stage powerhouse, Bai Yunduo had almost reached the pinnacle of this world. If she wanted to make even the slightest bit of progress, she would need many years of grinding. But this night, as she meditated beside her master and mistress, that mysterious Taoist rhyme seemed to be within her reach, lingering around her for almost the entire night. Bai Yunduo felt that if she could not suppress her own realm, she would have broken through a small realm by now. She was extremely grateful. She knew that her master and mistress could have done those things last night, but they deliberately gave her 5 or 6 hours. In these 5 or 6 hours, the enlightenment, Taoist rhyme, and the path of the great Tao that she had obtained would be something that all the top masters in the world might not be able to come in contact with in their lifetime. This was a great favor. No need. Wu Yuding said. You should seize the time to comprehend. Bai Yunduo said, little junior brother. I don't know. Wu Yuding took a deep breath and said, last night, I used the heavenly heart questioning technique, and your master also used the 9 heavens heart technique. Both of us used 2 kinds of secret techniques, and used ourselves as a medium to stimulate the senses of the divine soul, to check whether this life is complete or not. We did not find that the divine soul is incomplete, or that there is a legacy in life. She said softly, we can confirm that your little junior brother is still alive. This is beyond doubt. Bai Yunduo immediately jumped with joy. Really? Wu Yuding nodded her head and said coolly, really? As long as he is still alive, the rest is not important. But when we find Xiao Duo, we will naturally find the old bastard who kidnapped Xiao Duo to settle the score. I don't care what your master will do. I will definitely make the other party pay the price. Even if the flood which imprisoned Xiao Duo, I will not let him rest in peace. Perhaps I will find his descendants and end this karma. Although the voice was indifferent, the unscrupulous demonic nature was as clear as day. It was extremely fierce and murderous. Of course, Wu Yuding knew very well that the flood which could not have done this. Not only would the flood which not do this, but she would also protect Xiao Duo. Therefore, it must be someone else who did this. As for the others, ha 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 ha, in the whole world, who am I afraid of? Who can I not defeat? I will definitely find that old bastard, and end this karma. Since Xiao Duo is safe and you two have come out of seclusion, there is no need to hide it from little Nyener. Bai Yunduo said happily. That girl. Wu Yuding's gloomy face instantly turned gentle. She said, that girl looks cold on the surface, but in fact she has a lot on her mind. I will go and see that girl. Bai Yunduo said. I will go with you? You too. Won't my identity be exposed? Wu Yuding rolled her eyes and said, you'd better stay here. Bai Yunduo was a little reluctant. She said with an indescribable affection, I will go invisible and follow you. If you need someone to serve you, just call me. Serve me? I don't need you now. You just need to serve the little tiger well. Wu Yuding suddenly turned to look at Bai Yunduo's belly. She said, hey, I don't want to nag you, but how many years has it been? Your belly, why don't you fill it up a little? What's wrong? Is it because you can't or Huzi can't? Bai Yunduo froze on the spot when she heard this. Her pretty face suddenly became like a ripe persimmon, bashful to the extreme. Mistress, you. Hurry up. What about me? Wu Yuding said. You won't know if you don't give birth to one. It's fun. Bai Yunduo blushed. Her face was full of astonishment. Play. Yes. Wu Yuding said matter-of-factly. Hurry up and give birth to one. It's okay if you don't want to raise it. Give it to me to play. I will raise it. Bai Yunduo's shyness flew out of the sky, leaving only astonishment and shock. Play. Raise. I'm not just casually talking to you. You and the little tiger should hurry up and put this on the agenda. Wu Yuding taught her seriously. When you have a child, you won't be like this anymore. You know that Huzi is not a scheming person. He just rushes and fights without any worries. But when you have a child, you will be worried. No matter what happens, you will be able to tighten the string in your brain. Bai Yunduo thought about it and blushed. But at our level, it's so hard to have a child. That's because you don't work hard. Wu Yuding glared at her and said, if you don't work hard when you're young, you'll be sad when you're old. Haven't you heard of this? Hurry up. Work hard. Before her voice died away, Wu Yuding had already left. Only Bai Yunduo was left in the room with a burning face. She muttered, this poem does it mean this? On the other side, it was already early in the morning. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. After the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth a few days ago, the whole of Shangjing City was full of birds and flowers. The ancestral dragon was a martial artist. The students saw that spring had already filled the world after just one night. Naturally, their eyes were filled with curiosity. Countless students were exclaiming in surprise. There were also many who were busy taking photos. They wanted to record this lively scene into their photos and preserve it forever. All the school's higher-ups and all the teaching staff were doing their jobs. In the combat field on the four sides, earth-shattering shouts could be heard. However, at the next moment, everyone in the Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts campus felt as if the entire world had come to a standstill, with the exception of themselves. Just when everyone thought that they were the only ones experiencing it. But in fact, everyone was experiencing it. A brilliant golden light suddenly appeared and enveloped the whole Ancestral Dragon High School. The golden light seemed to be omnipresent. It was as if the sky was slowly sinking and the whole earth was pressing down. A black-clothed figure, like a god wandering in the mortal world, slowly descended from the sky along with the golden light. There was still a huge black-clothed figure in the sky, but the figure's real body had already landed on the ground. The person had a square face. When his eyes opened and closed, there was a faint movement of stars. The sun and moon were shining. His black cloak fluttered slightly in the wind, and he wore a simple crown on his head. His whole body was like a gentle breeze, flowing like water, as he walked forward smoothly. Wherever he passed, there was no trace and no sound. However, even if there were thousands of soldiers and horses in front of him, there were many tall buildings. When he walked past, they would naturally move aside and make a path for him. It allowed this person to pass smoothly. Everything was natural and logical. It was as if this was how it should be. All the teachers and students present looked on in shock. They looked at the majestic teaching building. There was clearly no gap in the sturdy building, but suddenly, a wide path appeared. Flowers bloomed on both sides of the path, and the ground was as beautiful as a piece of brocade. However, the black-clothed figure did not seem to mind at all. He leisurely walked past. Then, after the black-clothed and crowned figure walked past, the buildings along the path quietly returned to their original state, as if nothing had happened. Or, what they saw just now was just an illusion. For a moment, everyone who witnessed this scene was so shocked that they were suffocating, unable to control themselves. A feeling of respect and reverence that came from the bottom of their hearts involuntarily arose. With his arrival, this person seemed to have brought light to the world, but also seemed to have turned the world into complete darkness. It was not until a few minutes after the black-clothed figure walked past that a teacher who was walking towards him suddenly woke up from his daze. Then, his expression became abnormally emotional. Without saying anything, he fell to his knees with a plop, his face full of hot tears. After a long while, he was so emotional that he could not speak. "It's the minister, it's the minister, it's the minister. The sovereign descending ancestral dragon is mighty. Oh my God." Actually, he was not the only one who reacted. Many teachers of the older generation, the moment they came back to their senses, tears streamed down their faces. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. The Sky Surveyor throne. It was actually the legend of the astral souls, the sovereign descending ancestral dragon. In an instant, everyone remembered the portrait that was hung in the school auditorium. It was a portrait of a person's back. He was dressed in black and seemed to cover the sky and earth. He wore a crown and seemed to hold up the universe. That boundless majesty, that boundless aura. Looking at the huge black-clothed and crowned figure that was slowly dissipating in the sky, everyone cheered crazily and kowtowed. The minister is here. Without exception, all the students present knelt on the ground. Everyone's faces were full of tears, and they were indescribably excited. They did not know why, but they just wanted to cry. They did not care about their dignity and cried bitterly. For so many years, it was this black-clothed figure who had supported the continuation of the human race's life in the astral souls. The Sky Surveyor throne was a solid line of defense for the human race in the astral souls. This person was like a loyal guardian of the astral souls. With his own strength, he held up the sky for the human race in the astral souls. Everyone knew that without the Sky Surveyor throne, the astral souls would have fallen long ago. Countless heroes of the older generation had grown up under the protection of the Sky Surveyor throne. Countless cultivation resources were sent back from scratch by the Sky Surveyor throne. He used all means to deal with the enemy. He worked tirelessly alone to resist the strong enemies from all sides. He did many things for the human race in the astral souls. It could even be said that after the return of the Umno Alliance, until the Sky Surveyor throne grew, the human race in the astral souls had a mainstay. Only then did they have a true backbone. As long as the minister is still around, the astral souls will never fall. This was the consensus of everyone. Now this person who had protected the continent for so many years had come here, to the martial arts of the ancestral dragon. The minister has come to the ancestral dragon. This is the glory of the ancestral dragon. Some students were so excited that their faces and necks were red as they shouted. And this sentence was exactly what everyone was thinking. No one objected. Yes, the Sky Surveyor throne had come to the martial arts of the ancestral dragon. This was the glory of the martial arts of the ancestral dragon, an unprecedented glory. A wave of cheers shook the sky like a tsunami. In the office building, the principal had already brought a few vice principals who could quickly rush over. They also knelt on the ground devoutly. They were full of anticipation and excitement, as they quietly waited for the arrival of the god. Although the so-called etiquette of kneeling for status had long been abolished, in the face of such a human god, no one was unwilling to kneel. They all knelt sincerely from the bottom of their hearts. There was no coercion. It was just that they had to kowtow to the benefactor of the entire continent, in front of them, to express their gratitude. In front of them, the black-robed figure came as naturally as before. Although no one could see his face clearly, they still felt that the galaxy was shining brightly, and the sun and moon were shining brightly. Greetings to the minister. Everyone kowtowed and paid their respects at the same time. Zhuo Changlu said lightly, "Everyone get up. Call all the higher-ups of the martial arts of the ancestral dragon here. I have something that I need everyone's help with." After he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared. His voice was indifferent. The principal bounced up from the ground like a spring and shouted loudly. He was so excited that his face was red. "Hurry up! Call all the higher-ups of the ancestral dragon here. No one is allowed to be absent. The minister is going to give us a lecture personally. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The big conference room. Go. You guys go and clean it up. Don't let any dust. Make sure it's clean." The principal pointed at the vice principals. "Go quickly." The vice principals flew out in a whoosh. They had to clean it up. They didn't feel at ease leaving it to the students. They had to clean it up personally. Even if it was just a little bit of dust, it was still a great disrespect to the Sky Surveyor throne. It was also something that would make them feel uneasy for the rest of their lives. When the minister came, there was still dust. Even though the minister may not care about such minor details, but they wouldn't care about it. Because to them, this was blasphemy. It was even blasphemy against their life's beliefs. In the palace, a guard flew straight in at his top speed. He completely ignored the exclamations and questions along the way, and rushed straight to the emperor's bedroom. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty! There's great news! The Sky Surveyor throne has appeared in the martial arts of the ancestral dragon." The guard commander, who was about to get angry, immediately shut his mouth. His face instantly turned red and his eyes shone brightly. Inside, the emperor was eating breakfast when he heard this. He jumped up and rushed out barefooted. "Where is the minister? Hurry, 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 change clothes." All the major departments and aristocratic families fell into a state of chaos. The minister has appeared in the martial arts of the ancestral dragon. The people who were outside desperately brought the news back. They didn't dare to shout on the way back. They suppressed their excitement, and only shouted when they reached the door. This news caused everyone to be immersed in an almost explosive state of excitement, and it quickly spread out. Countless family heads, countless high-ranking officials and nobles, from all directions of Shangjing, they all rushed to the martial arts of the ancestral dragon. In everyone's eyes, there was a genuine look of pilgrimage. "Be careful, don't disturb the people. Don't make the minister unhappy. Faster, faster. I want to go. Even if it's just kowtowing to the minister from afar, it's worth it to catch a glimpse of him." The minister. Everyone was very excited. They even felt a long-lost sense of happiness. It was as if their bodies were being electrified. They were so excited that their bodies trembled. Only the martial arts department. Department head Ding had just come to work when he saw his personal guard suddenly appear out of thin air and rush in front of him like a ghost. He was so excited that he rushed over. Department head. There's a big matter. What big? Department head Ding was shocked. It's the Sky Surveyor throne. The minister is here. The minister has already arrived in the martial arts of the ancestral dragon. Department head, let's go. The 8 shadow guards were so excited that their pupils dilated. Then they saw their own department head Ding. His eyeballs suddenly bulged out, full of disbelief. He gagged and almost fainted. The minister is here. He's really here. This so fast that it seems that the matter is much more serious than I expected. The shadow guards were inexplicably surprised and even dissatisfied. What's going on? What's with your reaction? Why do you look unhappy? What do you want? The minister has arrived. Why do you look so frightened? What are you doing? Although I'm your shadow guard, but if you disrespect the minister, I'll still cut you down. Quick. Department head Ding bounced up and flew out of the window. He disappeared like a stream of light. Go to the ancestral dragon. Something big is going to happen. Huh. The shadow guards widened their eyes and were at a loss for a moment. They couldn't catch up with him at the first moment. 10 minutes past 8 in the morning. All the higher-ups of the Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School were sitting upright in the big conference room. The principal, vice principal, dean, even the heads of the various grades shamelessly claimed that they were the higher-ups and squeezed their way in, begging their grandparents for help. This might be the only time in their lives that they could see the minister's face. I'm a higher-up. I'm a higher-up. Chapter 1075. At this very moment, everyone was standing ramrod straight. The sky-inspecting minister. This old man had not appeared for hundreds of years. He was only controlling the great shamans of the Wu people. The 7 swords of the Tao League were already a legend in the Astral Souls continent, a myth. And this myth was the benefactor of the entire continent. Now this big shot suddenly appeared in front of Ancestral Dragon High Marshal. How could the people of Ancestral Dragon High Marshal not be excited? Everyone who was related to the Ancestral Dragon's high level of martial prowess was present. Coincidentally, there were exactly 90 of them. The 90 people waited quietly, gazing respectfully at the still empty stage. The minister had not arrived yet, but everyone knew that he would appear on this stage soon. They just didn't know when he would come. Everyone was waiting quietly for that moment to arrive. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light flashed. A figure as majestic as a mountain appeared on the stage. At this moment, the sun and the moon shone together, the stars twinkled, the black robe fluttered, and the crown was held high. Everyone stood up and bowed in greeting. We pay our respects to the minister. On the stage, the minister gently raised his hand and said, "All right, sit down." Then, a chair appeared behind the minister out of thin air. The minister sat down on that chair like floating clouds and flowing water. Then he said lightly, "Today, I came to Ancestral Dragon High Marshal to ask for your help." Ancestral Dragon High Marshal and the others were all excited. Their faces were red as they said, "If the minister has any orders, we will go through water and tread on fire. We will not hesitate to die." On the stage, the minister gently nodded. His voice was still indifferent as he said, "I have a close friend. His name is Qin Fengyang." As soon as this sentence came out, it was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's hearts. At this moment, the principal of Ancestral Dragon High Marshal only wanted to vomit blood. He just wanted to faint immediately and not know anything. It would be best if he didn't care about anything. So that's it. So that's it. So that's the truth. No wonder Department Head Ding was so sure. If they couldn't find the person, everyone would die. Everyone would die. At that time, everyone had guessed wrongly and thought that it was the king of Zulu's arrangement. Qin Fengyang's cultivation and strength were just so. His connections and background were the most eye-catching. He had some connections with the Eastern Front Marshal Dongfang, and through his good disciple, Zhou Xiaoduo, He had gotten to know many high-ranking martial artists. Everything else was insignificant. To the king of Zwolu, such a person was just an insignificant person. The difference in status between the two was too great. The fact that the king of Zwolu had asked him about it was already his limit. Perhaps he would forget about it after a few days. Even if the king of Zwolu did not forget, and insisted on pursuing the matter. This matter involved many influential people in Shangjing City. Even if their power was not enough to make the king of Zwolu afraid, it was not difficult to make the king of Zwolu show mercy. Slaughtering all the high-ranking officials in Shangjing for such a small person. The king of Zwolu, who always looked at the big picture, would not do such a thing. That was probably what everyone thought. Even after department head Ding gave the order, there was still not much reaction. They still thought that it was all bark and no bite. But no one would have thought that Qin Fangyang was the minister's man. Because of Qin Fangyang, the minister personally came to Ancestral Dragon. Denounce him. When everyone thought of this word, how could they not know that the consequences of this matter were too serious? The minister had personally said that Qin Fangyang was his best friend. What did best friend mean? However, anyone who had gone to primary school, anyone who was slightly literate, would understand the meaning behind it. Best friend. What a scam. If you had such a strong relationship with Qin Fangyang, why didn't you say so? If you had said it, or even slightly revealed this relationship, the entire Ancestral Dragon would have worshipped you as their ancestor. Was it necessary to let you go missing, with your whereabouts unknown, with your life and death unknown? Your disappearance and unknown whereabouts were not important, but it was a scam to all of us. Among the 90 high-ranking officials of Ancestral Dragon, most of them were confused about the current situation. They did not know where it came from, or where it was going. They did not know the cause of the current change. They were all puzzled. What was going on? How did it unfold? However, there were also a dozen or so people whose faces turned snow white in an instant, completely devoid of color. The minister sat on the stage. His voice was very quiet as he said lightly, Qin Fangyang went missing in Ancestral Dragon's martial arts. I don't believe it. Below the stage, everyone seated was dumbstruck. Those who were qualified to be the high-ranking officials of Ancestral Dragon's martial arts were not ordinary people. At this moment, they had already understood the meaning behind the words. They also understood that the minister's intention in coming to Ancestral Dragon's martial arts was not simple. The minister's voice was like a gust of cold wind from the depths of hell. So please everyone find him. Below the stage, there was still complete silence for a long time. Finally, the principal of Ancestral Dragon's martial arts struggled to stand up while trembling. He said bitterly, Minister, regarding teacher Qin Fangyang's disappearance, it did happen in Ancestral Dragon. But this matter, I did not notice anything unusual from beginning to end. Ever since teacher Qin went missing, we have been looking for him. The minister's gaze was like the rotation of the sun and moon. The principal immediately felt that he could not speak. Looking at the minister's eyes, his mind was muddled for a moment. When he finally came back to his senses, he found that he had already sat down without knowing when. The next person to stand up was Vice Principal Lu, who was sitting beside the principal. Minister, regarding this matter, we really did not know. That Qin Fangyang. The minister looked at this vice principal and said lightly, You are called Lu Zhongtian? Lu Zhongtian said, Yes. The minister said, You are from Shangjing's Lu family? Lu Zhongtian said, Yes. The minister said lightly, Lu Shintong, is he still alive? Lu Zhongtian said respectfully, Ancestor already. Passed away 200 years ago. The minister said, He died on your family's bed. Yes. The minister was silent for a moment and said lightly, Is there anyone from Shangjing's Lu family outside? Call in a few people who can make decisions. His voice drifted out slowly. In less than 100 breaths, voices came from the door. Lu families Lu Wangxing, Lu Haiba, Lu Zhanxa and Lu Yinting. Greet the minister. Vice Principal Lu's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. Among these people, Lu Wangxing was the oldest ancestor of the Lu family. Lu Haiba was the second generation, and was nicknamed the #1 expert of the Liu family. Below him was Liu Zhanxian, the current head of the Liu family. Finally, Liu Yinting was the current head of the Yinwu Empire's secret department. He was also the person with the highest official position in the Liu family. These 4 people represented the current power structure of the Liu family. "Come in," the minister said. Yes. The door opened. The 4 people entered in a single file and knelt on the ground with respectful attitudes. The minister said lightly, "This vice principal Liu Zhongtian was involved in Qin Fengyang's disappearance. Does the Liu family know the inside story?" The head of the secret department, Liu Yinting, was covered in cold sweat. His whole body was shaking. The minister glanced at him and said lightly, "I'll ask again. Does the Liu family's elder know that Liu Yinting was involved in erasing the traces?" Liu Wangxing and the other 2 trembled and knelt down. "Spare our lives, minister." The minister sat on the chair and said lightly, "Do you think that if you don't say anything, there will be no evidence to follow? There will be no law to rely on, and I won't be able to convict you? Do you think that your crimes will be sealed in the ground forever, never to see the light of day?" The 5 people of the Liu family all knelt on the ground, trembling. Their faces were already pale. Liu family's ancestor, Liu Wangxing's old face was full of despair. He was almost dead. As the ancestor of the Liu family, he knew very well what kind of situation the Liu family was in now. The minister's voice and tone were still indifferent. But the end of the Liu family was already decided. There was no need for law, no need for evidence, and so on. Every word that came out of the minister's mouth was the law of the astral souls. It was irresistible, and it could not be defied. The minister had clearly stated the word sin in his last sentence. The minister was very angry. That meant that the Liu family was finished. Liu Wangxing did not dare to complain, nor did he have anything to complain about. The only thing he hated was the fact that his descendants were so insensible. The Liu family was already one of the top families in Shangjing. What was there to be discontent about? Why did they have to go and cause such a huge disaster? The minister said lightly, "Liu family's Liu Zhongtian, Liu Yinting, used public resources for private use, framed the loyal, disregarded the law, and vermin Yinwu. The punishment was about to be handed down." Liu Wangsheng was desperate, so he suddenly cried out in a heart-wrenching manner, "Minister, minister! My family's ancestor, Liu Shintong, had also fought fiercely in the world. He had also served as a general under the right heavenly king. Minister, please show mercy. The fault of the younger generation should not be blamed on the whole family." The minister's voice was very cold. "Do you think that my previous question was without reason? That Liu Shintong actually died on his own bed. As an old general who fought on the battlefield, this is also a crime. The heavenly king of the right, Yu Dongtian, is also guilty. When the continent was in a precarious situation, when the bloody battle at the Sun and Moon Pass was endless, when the Wu people were facing a strong enemy, even if they had a long life, they would choose to self-destruct on the battlefield, and their last bit of strength would be used to slaughter our people. Yet the heavenly king of the right actually had such a great general under his command. Yu Dongtian, your discipline is not strict, and you have no prestige. You are a disgrace to the heavenly king of the right. From today onwards, in front of the Sun and Moon Pass, the whole army will reflect on themselves. The heavenly king of the right, Yu Dongtian, from today onwards, will guard the Sun and Moon Pass for 1,000 years without moving. Your salary will be deducted for 1,000 years as a warning to others." Chapter 1076. The minister's voice was like rolling thunder in spring. It came from ancestor Dragon Gaowu, and no one within a radius of 1,000 miles could not hear it. A long saber appeared in the sky above Shangjing City. The so-called long saber was not enough to describe it. It was a huge saber that stretched from east to west. It was tens of thousands of feet long, and it shone brightly in all directions. The entire Shangjing kept quiet out of fear. For this matter, even the heavenly king of the right, one of the strongest astral souls, was punished. And he was punished so severely. Liu Wangxing's face was as white as paper. Tears and snot flowed down his face. His heart was filled with despair. He no longer had any hope. Even the heavenly king of the right was punished. What hope did the Lu clan have? He had only mentioned the achievements of his ancestors, and he had implicated the heavenly king of the right. Even if the minister had let the Lu clan off, and left them some leeway, the Lu clan would no longer have any place in the Yinwu Empire from today onwards. All the soldiers under the heavenly king of the right, or those who used to be under the heavenly king of the right, would hate the Lu clan to the core. They would spare no effort in attacking the Lu family, until the Lu family was completely annihilated. Not only did he seek his own death, he even complained for the sake of the heavenly king of the right. Do you think the heavenly king of the right is someone you can frame? The minister's voice was indifferent. The Lu clan, Lu Zhongtian, Lu Yenting. Such people are not fit to hold high positions. The Lu clan is not fit to live in Shangjing. The Lu clan's disciples are not fit to live in this world. The three not fit were like three claps of thunder. The fate of the entire Lu clan was decided. The 5 people who held high positions in the Lu clan all fell to the ground like mud. Qin Fangyang must return alive. The minister's voice was cold. I promise that if Qin Fangyang lives, the Lu clan will have a descendant. If Qin Fangyang dies, the entire Lu clan will be buried with him. Sir. Lu Wangxing knelt on the ground and begged weakly. Sir, you should not implicate women and children. The minister smiled faintly. Before you speak, why don't you reflect on yourself? Not long ago, there was someone who had said similar words. Everyone present, please don't forget that when you harm others, there may also be innocent women and children in the court. My ancestor had military exploits. Your Excellency, for the sake of, with the heaven inspecting minister's decree, I erase all the military merits of the Lu clan's ancestor. The minister said indifferently, you have 3 days to find Qin Fangyang. This is the time limit I promised. He looked at the 5 of them with his rotating eyes and said indifferently, or have you given up on this time limit? The 5 people of the Lu family scrambled out without saying a word. They were all in a daze, their faces pale, but they tried their best to return, hoping to preserve the last bit of hope, the last bit of bloodline. The Lu clan was finished. This was the common thought of everyone who heard it. However, if they could find Qin Fangyang, then the Lu family would still have a chance to survive. At the very least, they would have a chance to leave behind a descendant. On the other hand, whether it was Qin Fangyang's death, or the Lu family's inability to find his whereabouts, the Lu family would definitely be exterminated. The imperial edict to dismiss Lu Yenting, the head of the dark department, came from outside. The entire dark unit had been placed under surveillance and handed over to the Ministry of Justice for trial. Anyone who participated in cleaning up the traces would be investigated and interrogated to find clues that the Lu clan was finished. However, this was not the end yet, because the minister did not leave. The minister who had dealt with the Lu clan did not have the slightest intention of ending this matter. He turned to look at another vice principal of Ancestral Dragon High School and said indifferently, you are from the Bai clan? You are called Bai Chonghai? Bai Chonghai felt dizzy, and then he lost consciousness. When he woke up from his daze, he saw the head of the Bai clan, and a few elders kneeling beside him. I have no intention to ask any more questions, and I am too lazy to judge one by one. Your clan will be dealt with the same way as the Lu clan. I give you 3 days to find Qin Fangyang. If you can't find him, you will be punished. If you can find him, you will also be punished. Another big clan was kicked out of the circle of nobles in Shangjing with just a few words. They would be consigned to eternal damnation. At this moment, the faces of the people who were still in the auditorium were all pale. Those who were qualified to be part of the upper echelons of Ancestral Dragon High School were not ordinary people. However, very few of them had clean hands. Whether it was an exchange of benefits, a compromise of power, or something else, there were very few people who had not done things against their will, against the law, and against the law. In short, there was no one who did not have shit on their buttocks. The only difference was whether to investigate or not. It was fine if it was just a small squabble. However, once it was serious and they lined up to kill, no one was innocent. How could everyone not tremble in fear? They were afraid that the minister would be the next to call out their names and overturn the clan behind them. Shangjing is really dirty now. The minister looked at the people below and could not help but sigh softly. Zhuochanglu had experienced too many changes in dynasties and the transfer of power. Naturally, he had already seen through the essence of politics and the truth of trickery. The reason why he ignored the filth of the mortal world for so long was that he did not want to be contaminated by the dirtiest dust in the mortal world. However, the affairs of the world were unpredictable, and all living things were chess pieces. He would have to face this filth again, that on the other side. Wu Yuding had already arrived outside Zhuoxianyan's door and gently knocked on it. "Who is it?" Zhuoxianyan's voice came from inside. "Nianmao, hurry up and open the door." "Wah!" Zhuoxianyan, who was inside, cheered. The sudden sound wave almost blew the roof off. She rushed to open the door as if she was flying. She did not even look, and directly rushed into Wu Yuding's arms with her head down. She desperately rubbed. "Mom! Woo-woo! Mom! Mom! Woo-woo! You miss me so much! Mom!" She repeatedly called her mom and stayed in Wu Yuding's arms. She was unwilling to get up again. She held her tightly with both hands and refused to let go. She was afraid that the person in her arms would leave again. Zhuoxianyan greedily sniffed the unique scent of her mother. She cried, laughed, choked, and wanted to shout with joy. However, she could not help but cry, but tears of happiness at hugging her mother. She only felt that the world was so safe. The long-lost satisfaction came again. "You're finally back, Wu-Wu." The spiritual goddess, who had always been as cold as an iceberg, cried like a little cat. Her face was mottled with tears. "You little girl, why are you crying?" Wu Yuding hugged her daughter and said angrily, "Didn't your father and I tell you that we would definitely come back? Now you cry as soon as you see us. What is this? Are you glad that we kept our word? Or are you complaining that we came back too late?" "That's different," Zhuoxianyan protested. "What's different? We said that we would come back. Aren't we back now? What's different? Anyway, it's different." Zhuoxianyan was still in Wu Yuding's arms. She simply left the ground and climbed onto Wu Yuding's body. If this scene was seen by Zhuoxiaoduo, he would be in disbelief. No, anyone who knew Zhuoxianyan would be in disbelief if they saw this scene. It was just that the others were more different than Zhuoxiaoduo. How could this be something that the spiritual goddess and the spiritual goddess could do? Wu Yuding had no choice but to enter the room with her daughter, who looked like a large koala bear. She patted her plump buttocks and said, "Come down. How old are you? Don't you know how to be shy?" "I won't. Come down. I won't come down." Zhuoxianyan began to act coquettishly. She pouted and wriggled on her mother's body. "You're a big girl. You're going to get married soon. Why are you still so disobedient? You're marrying your son. There are no outsiders around. How can you rely on your mother-in-law like this?" "Of course. Yes, of course." Zhuoxianyan pouted and shouted. Wu Yuding was really speechless. She had to sit by the bed with her daughter in her arms. Suddenly she was stunned. "What's this? Such a big puppy?" As she spoke, she turned over the quilt. "Ayaya." Zhuoxianyan suddenly struggled out of Wu Yuding's arms and pushed the Star Fantasy Jade puppy into the quilt at lightning speed. She still felt unsafe and pushed the quilt to the innermost part of the bed in a hurry. Wu Yuding squinted at her. "Ayaya, you miss my son so much that you even put such a big puppy in the quilt. How shameful. My daughter, Wu Yuding, is such a good for nothing." Zhuoxianyan blushed. "No, it's a whole piece of Star Fantasy Jade. It can quickly gather spiritual energy. It just happens to look like a puppy. I put it in the quilt just for cultivation." "Yes, it was for the sake of cultivation." "Cultivation? It has nothing to do with the puppy." Okay. This puppy has nothing to do with the puppy. I thought too much." Wu Yuding gently pinched her daughter's pink face and said, "Then I'll put the living puppy in the quilt for you. Do you want it?" "No way. It stinks." Zhuoxianyan turned her head away proudly. "Oh, then I'll have to find another one to warm his bed." "Ayaya, Mom, you're bullying me." Zhuoxianyan couldn't take it anymore. She snuggled into Wu Yuding's arms and wriggled. Wu Yuding suddenly laughed heartily. She hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. Sure enough, she was most relaxed in front of her family. By the way, Mom, you're back. Does the puppy know? Zhou Xiaoyan suddenly remembered. I haven't had time to tell him. He seems to be in a private place. Wu Yuding said. Have you contacted him recently? No. Supervisor Bai Yunduo told me that he's currently in a special training in a certain territory. It's normal that I can't contact him. I'll try to contact him now. If he knows that you two are back, he'll be ecstatic. Zhou Xiaoyan took out her phone excitedly. Wu Yuding wanted to stop her, but she thought that it would make Zhou Xiaoyan suspicious. So she didn't say anything. She couldn't contact him anyway. She would find a way to contact her husband later. She had scanned the entire continent of astral souls with her divine sense and found nothing. Then, she would go to the Umno Alliance and the Dao League. She didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to find that kid. Zhou Xiaoyan was excited. Although she knew that Zhou Xiaoduo was in a secret special training, she still held on to the slightest hope. After she dialed the number, she sighed softly. Ayaya, I'm afraid that the puppy is still in the trial. He probably won't be able to pick up the call. Wu Yuding and Zhou Xiaoyan, one knew the truth, and the other knew the truth about a certain someone's situation. For a moment, they didn't have any hope for this call, but there was a long beep sound from the phone. Did he pick up the call? At this moment, Wu Yuding was shocked. Zhou Xiaoyan, who was holding the phone, was shocked. Her red little mouth was wide open, and her eyes were full of shock. Mamma mia! He picked up the call. Chapter 1077. Wu Yuding and Zhou Xiaoyan did not expect Zhou Xiaoduo to pick up the call. What? What was going on? This should not be happening. After 2 rings, the call was picked up. The voice was very low, but it was clear that it was Zhou Xiaoduo's voice. Nian Mao. Zhou Xiaoyan snorted and said fiercely, Doggy, where are you? Zhou Xiaoduo's voice was heard. I am in the trial. What's so great about the trial? Everyone knows. Zhou Xiaoyan was about to say something, but the phone was snatched away by Wu Yuding. Xiaoduo, where are you? Zhou Xiaoyan was stunned. Why was her mother in such a hurry? She called him Xiaoduo instead of Doggy. Zhou Xiaoduo was obviously stunned. Then he shouted excitedly, Mom? Ah, you and Dad are back. Cut the crap. Tell me where you are. Wu Yuding said angrily. Hurry up and tell me the truth. I'm training in a remote mountain. Ahem, the signal here isn't very good. I couldn't contact Nian Nian Cat before, but now that I've been able to contact her, everything's fine. I'll be back in a few days, and I've already told you that I'm safe. Don't worry, your son's cultivation has improved tremendously, and he's invincible now. Hearing that his parents were back, Zhou Xiaoduo was happy. However, he was more worried. If his parents came and met the old man, that they might not be able to defeat the old man. After all, the old man was at the top of the world. Even if his parents were big shots, could they be as strong as the old man? Once the enemy met, they would be furious. His parents would be implicated. Now that he had reported his safety, he could hide in the space of the Tower of Emptiness. He did not believe that the old man could wait for him for long. Cut the crap, Wu Yuding said angrily. Hurry up and say it. Ahem, I'm not far from the Sun Moon Pass. It's very safe, Zhou Xiaoduo said vaguely. Umno Alliance? Wu Yuding immediately guessed. Ahem, you can say that. Mom, I'll talk to you later. There's still a battle here. Before Wu Yuding could say anything, the phone was hung up. Wu Yuding had a murderous look on her face. He actually landed in the Umno Alliance. Humph. Flood, that old bastard. How does he discipline his subordinates? Then he called Zhuo Changlu. There's news about Xiaoduo. He's at the Umno Alliance. I just talked to him on the phone. As Zhuo Changlu interrogated him, the killing intent in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Even though he didn't want to be contaminated by the filth of the world, he had already been contaminated. So it didn't matter if he was contaminated more. Once he let go of his scruples, everything would be solved. The relevant matters were almost understood. The beginning and the end of the matter were just a few families who were annoyed by Qin Fangyang's interference. In order to ensure that there would be no accidents, and that their children could be promoted smoothly, they dealt with Qin Fangyang, who had been jumping around happily. Anyway, this kind of thing had been done countless times in the past years. Everything was familiar to them. So far, the only oversight was when they were arresting Qin Fangyang. Qin Fangyang somehow sensed his danger in advance, and always kept a very cautious state of stealth. When the people who dealt with him caught up with him, Qin Fangyang had already left Shangjing City and entered the wilderness. Naturally, the 6 high-level killers wouldn't let him go. They chased him all the way and caused a big battle in the Death Valley in the north of Shangjing City. In this battle, Qin Fangyang exploded 5 doppelgangers and seriously injured 3 of them. However, his head, chest, back, and dantian were fatally injured 17 times, and he fell down the cliff. When Qin Fangyang fell down, the 3 uninjured killers were still in a killing intent. They threw their long swords out of their hands and pierced through Qin Fangyang's body. The bottom of the Death Valley was a bottomless, dangerous place. Once, someone flew down 13,000 meters, but he still couldn't explore the bottom. He encountered dense poisonous fog. For some unknown reason, there was infinite poison gathered below. However, the fog seemed to be locked by some clever tactical formation and didn't rise. However, anyone who fell into the poisonous fog, for some reason, was doomed to die. There was no exception. Therefore, the Death Valley was called a dangerous place. At this point, even Zhuo Chenglu couldn't help but sigh. Qin Fangyang's hope of survival was very slim. He was almost doomed to die. This result caused Zhuo Cheng to fly into a rage. Zhuo Chenglu wouldn't let go of any of the participating families. Even the families who didn't participate, Zhuo Chenglu wanted to clean them up, as long as they had controlled the dragons fighting for the heritage. At this moment, he had already cleaned up the 4th family. When he was about to continue to clean up the 5th family, he unexpectedly received a call from his wife. He blocked the space and answered the call. He was overjoyed. His son didn't die, and the specific location was sent back. Since his son didn't die, Zhuo Chenglu immediately changed his current plan. It wasn't that Zhuo Chenglu stopped killing because he heard that his son didn't die. It was because he shouldn't be the one to deal with this matter. If Qin Fangyang was still alive and Zhuo Xiaoduo was dead, then everything would be done by him. But from the current situation, it was impossible for Qin Fangyang to still be alive. But Zhuo Xiaoduo had news that he was still alive. Then, the work of avenging Qin Fangyang had to be done by Zhuo Xiaoduo. As his father, he couldn't overstep his boundaries. The reason was very simple. Zhuo Xiaoduo was Qin Fangyang's most valued disciple. It was because of this disciple that this matter happened. If Zhuo Xiaoduo couldn't settle this grudge, it wouldn't be a good thing for Qin Fangyang and Zhuo Xiaoduo. Therefore, Zhuo Chenglu immediately stopped. Let Qin Fangyang's disciple take the last step. What a pity. Zhuo Chenglu's heart was full of regret. He had planned to have a good talk with Qin Fangyang after he came out of seclusion. They could really become friends. Although there was a huge disparity between the 2 of them in terms of status and cultivation, Zhuo Zhenglu still believed that Qin Fangyang was a friend worth making. But now, he didn't have the chance. Zhuo Chenglu didn't deal with the Diwu family anymore. Instead, he snorted and said, "The mighty ancestral dragon has been reduced to a place of hiding evil. So what if I'm dealing with it? It really hurts my heart." As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up and his body slowly disappeared. Zhuo Zhenglu knew everything about Qin Fangyang in his heart. He didn't miss out on anything. It wasn't difficult to do this, but it wasn't easy at all. After Zhuo Chenglu came in and mentioned Qin Fangyang's name, he immediately performed the heavenly soul search on the few people who didn't look right. All secrets were laid bare before his eyes under this top-notch soul-searching technique. Not a single detail was left out. The soul search was an operation that targeted the person's divine soul. The divine soul of a person was difficult to cultivate. It was already unusual to be able to master the soul search. However, whether it was an ordinary person or a cultivator, the divine soul was an extremely fragile part of the body. Once it was damaged, it was difficult to repair. Therefore, the soul search shouldn't be used unless it was a last resort. This was a recognized iron law in the cultivation world. Once it was used, In addition to causing irreparable damage to the divine soul of the person whose soul search was performed, the memory obtained by forcibly collecting the soul search was often only a small part of the person's memory fragments. There might not be any memory that was needed. Moreover, the soul search couldn't be repeated several times. Basically, after one time, the person's divine soul would be seriously damaged and would be no different from an idiot. However, Zhuo Chonglu's heavenly soul search was different. He used his own divine soul to look at the target's divine soul instead of forcibly capturing the divine soul. His cultivation had reached the peak of the world, and so did his divine soul. The target's divine soul search was relatively weak. They couldn't resist Zhuo Chonglu's divine soul search at all. They couldn't even notice that their soul search was being carried out. In the blink of an eye, Zhuo Chonglu scanned through all of the other parties' memories. He could easily restore the truth and determine all of the related criminals. After completing all of this, all of the target's details had been completely exposed. They didn't know anything about it. Going back to the beginning and end of the whole thing, it could be said to be an accident, but it might not necessarily be a long-term habit. For a long time, the matter of the dragon race for the heritage in the ancestral dragon gauntlet of Shangjing had been a secret circle of interests. It was jokingly called the cradle of the leadership by insiders. The number of people who entered the dragon race for the heritage was announced to the public every time it was announced to be 24. But in fact, the real number was 36. The extra 12 places were the benefits that belonged to the cradle of the leadership. The royal family, the aristocratic families, and the big clans divided the 12 places. And it was basically impossible for these 12 people to go to dangerous places in the future. For example, they would never go to places like the Sun-Moon Pass. It wasn't easy to get a place and divide the luck. Their future progress was guaranteed, and they were destined to go further than the others. Whether it was their starting point luck, or luck, they were much better than the ordinary people. Such a talent, in addition to a deep foundation, had martial strength, brains, and connections. In a few years, they would be able to climb to a high position in the empire and become the mainstay of the family. How could such a mainstay talent be sent to the battlefield to be sacrificed? It was better to stay in the family and stay in the empire to take charge of the overall situation. This was the wisest and most reasonable way to deal with it. And as time passed, as the effect of participating in the dragon race for the heritage was too good, the number of people who were jealous naturally increased day by day. Slowly, the few families who originally had vested interests gradually couldn't withstand the pressure. They used many operations to reduce the number of places for the dragon race for the heritage again, and used this to reduce the pressure on themselves. In the beginning, only 6 of the original 24 places were given to certain families. In name, it was to reward the descendants of the meritorious deeds. After all, the established 12 places were not known to the outside world. It was natural to give a part of the known share. In recent years, there had been a change in the number of people. Nominally, it was said that there were too many people fighting for the heritage, and it was not beneficial to share the luck. The total number of people announced by the officials was reduced from the original 18 to 12. In fact, the 6 places that were reduced by the officials were transferred to the relevant families who had interests. In this way, the official 12 places announced to the public, but there were a total of 24 places. The number of people was under the category of under-the-table operations. However, there was still a considerable amount of room for manipulation on the surface of the 12 places. In the simplest way to describe this situation, it was internally determined. This kind of internal determination was initially targeted to the well-known geniuses, such as Zhuo Xiaoduo, Li Chenglong, and the like. If it was internally determined like this, all parties would relatively approve of it. After all, those who benefited from the heritage would be blessed with luck, and those geniuses would be bound to do their best for the safety and well-being of the continent in the future. In terms of the overall situation, it was in line with the overall interests. But later, the extent to which the royal family of Shangjing and several big families benefited from it they increasingly witnessed the benefits of the heritage. They were more and more reluctant to share the benefits with ordinary people outside their circle. Not to mention that many families in Shangjing also expressed their intention to have a share of the profits. Finally, it evolved into the current interest circle of the heritage that the 12 families jointly established to control the heritage. The transactions here were shocking to the eye, mottled and full of bloody paths. Once the huge interest circle was formed, whoever dared to extend their hands would naturally be suppressed by the other families. And Qin Fangyang, with a fearless attitude, barged in. For the future of his students, and for He Yuanyue's last wish, Qin Fangyang did not know the pros and cons. Even if he knew, he would still go forward without hesitation. In this matter, the royal family and 4 of the old families who had vested interests did not make a move. The ones who did make a move were the new families in recent years, namely the Lu family and the Bai family. In their eyes, Qin Fangyang's action was a violation of their established interests, which was a provocation to the main family. Based on the principle that they had been used to for hundreds of years, they just casually ordered, "Get rid of him." And then this matter happened. After Qin Fangyang's accident, these families, as usual, split up and acted with tacit understanding. Those who needed to deal with the traces did so. Those who needed to erase the influence did so. Those who needed to throw out other things to attract the public's attention were also doing the same. All the follow-up traces, including the bystanders and those who might know, were all eliminated. For these families, this was something that they were very familiar with. After all, they had been doing this for so many years, and they could not be more familiar with it. They did it very well. So much so that even the supervisor Bai Yunduo did a secret investigation, but she did not find any clues. However, no one said anything about it. The main reason was that no one really put in the effort to investigate, and no force, had the ability to go against these local tyrants in Shangjing and pull out the teeth from the tiger's mouth. But this time, it was different, completely different. Behind Qin Fangyang, there was an iron plate that was beyond their knowledge. After climbing so many mountains, they finally met a ghost. No, it should be that they met a god, the guardian of the mainland of astral souls. The Fan family, the Lu family, the Wang family, the Bai family, the Yin family, the Zhong family, the Zhou family, and the Shen family. Every single one of these 8 clans had something to do with the matter of Qin Fangyang making a move. The original royal family, the Lan family, the Yang family, and the Xia family, the real 4 big families, who also had the most vested interests, did not make a move in Qin Fangyang's incident this time. Now, in the hearts of these few families, it could be said that they were greatly relieved. Even if they were still held accountable, at least it would not be a calamity that would wipe them out. Among the 8 families involved, Zhuochanglu had already singled out the Fan family, the Lu family, the Bai family, and the Yin family. These few families were definitely done for, and there was no turning back. The minister did not need to say anything, just his attitude of singling them out, and they were already done for, without any luck. Furthermore, the minister had singled out Qin Fangyang, who was one of the top 10 fugitives of the Eastern Army, and this matter would definitely reach the ears of Commander Dongfang. With Commander Dongfang's famous temper of protecting his own, and the minister's implicit support. Originally, Zhuochanglu wanted to settle everything, but now that he suddenly knew his son's whereabouts, he naturally left this matter to his son to deal with. It was still the same sentence. It was the same reason why Yun Zhonghu and Bai Yunduo did not directly take action. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. As Qin Fangyang's student, Zhuo Xiaoduo avenged his teacher, and it was right and proper. If he took action, it would be overstepping his authority. Therefore, Zhuochanglu decisively cut him off and swaggered off. The remaining 4 families, who had already felt the impending disaster, could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. It was too frightening. Just now, they clearly felt that their families were done for. But they did not expect that there would be a turn of events. It seemed that the minister only investigated those 4 families, and did not investigate us. If that was the case, then that would be great. As long as the minister did not convict us on the spot, No matter how those families bite us, we can deal with them. At most, we will give up some benefits and abandon the rook to save the king. Compared to the entire family, a few benefits are nothing. Since arriving, the emperor, who knew that the minister was investigating the matter of the dragons fighting over the veins, did not dare to come in at all, and had been waiting outside. At this moment, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Pass down the decree Fan Lu, by an families and all related officials, are to be dismissed and investigated. These 4 families, with 9 generations as the limit, will use all their manpower to set up an inescapable net to capture and investigate the case of Teacher Qin's murder. We must let the heroic souls rest in peace in the underworld. Ancestral Dragon Gao will be reorganized from today onwards. Department Head Ding of the Martial Arts Department will be in charge of this matter. As for the shares of the dragons fighting over the veins, come up with the most fair and appropriate distribution plan as soon as possible. At this moment, no one would object to the emperor's words, including the 7 families who previously regarded the dragons fighting over the veins as their private property. This time, not only did they not dare to have the slightest objection, but they kept quiet out of fear that the slightest movement would cause trouble for themselves. Now, everyone was very clear in their hearts. The most important thing now was to extricate their families from this matter, and then they could talk about other things. His life was his top priority, and his family's safety was his top priority. It was really too frightening. The 4 families that had been entrenched in Shangjing for more than 2,000 years were completely uprooted with just a few words, and there was no longer any chance of survival. Although nominally, they still had to go through the judicial process, everyone was still clear in their hearts. Everyone in the 4 families, from top to bottom, would not be able to survive. Only the subordinates of the Heavenly King of the Right and the generals of the great Marshal Dongfang would not be spared. One had to know that this time, they had a good reason to act. They had the support of the number 1 in the world, the guardian of astral souls, behind them. How could that group of people not take the opportunity to make a move? If they did not turn the world upside down, it would not be over. In the following period of time, Shangjing City would be in troubled times, and it would become a place of trouble. It was better for everyone to be more honest. If they could successfully survive this dragon's fighting over the veins, it would be a blessing from the heavenly official, a blessing from the heavens. The wind blew in the sky. Zhua Changlu and Wu Yuding had already met up. Let's go to the Umno Alliance immediately. Wu Yuding's attitude was very decisive. She could not wait to find her son now, hold the puppy in her arms, and kiss him properly. She really missed it too much. Her son was in the Umno Alliance, and that was a dangerous place. How could that be? Although there is definite news from my son's side, I still feel that there is something strange about this matter. Zhua Changlu frowned. You didn't kill everyone, did you? No. Your call came at the right time. Since Xiao Duo is still alive, I naturally have to leave some for Xiao Duo. Zhua Changlu sighed and said, although this will damage my reputation, Qin Fangyang is Xiao Duo's teacher. If Xiao Duo can't avenge his teacher with his own hands, it will inevitably be a great regret in his life. In the future, when he dreams at night, he will often feel that he has wronged his teacher, and this guilt will accompany him for the rest of his life. Therefore, this kind of situation naturally has to be avoided. Wu Yuding deeply agreed. You're right. The 2 of them began to discuss going to the Umno Alliance together to pick up the puppy. Zhua Xiaonian was listening at the side, and she insisted on going with them. After being scolded by Zhua Changlu with a stern face, she pouted and became obedient. Just as the 2 of them were about to leave, Zhua Changlu suddenly received a phone call. At first glance, he couldn't help but be surprised. He said, "Hey, is it from Hu Tu? He just left for a night. Why is he calling?" So he answered, "Hu Tu." Zhua Changlu frowned. "What's the matter?" Cough, cough, cough. This, that. On the other side, Yun Zhonghu's strange voice sounded as if he was in a mess in the wind. He stuttered the whole time, and couldn't even speak clearly. As 2 people who had watched Yun Zhonghu grow up, they could imagine that the king of Zwilu was probably in a state of complete confusion at this time. "What's the matter?" Yin Zhonghu's voice was already breaking down. We've found the whereabouts of youngest junior brother. You found it? Zhuo Chonglu frowned. I already know. I also got the information about Xiao Duo's whereabouts. Yin Zhonghu's tone was extremely surprised. You are actually not angry. Angry? Zhuo Chonglu was immediately puzzled. What's going on? What did you find on your end? Yin Zhonghu's voice was messy in the wind. After youngest junior brother's portrait was sent to Ryu Pass, there was news from there. They said that on the day youngest junior brother went missing, someone took him to visit the cemetery of martyrs and entered the martyrs' palace. Zhuo Chonglu. Hearing this, the minister's eyebrows slowly twisted into a rope. He was keenly aware that there was something unusual going on. Tell me exactly what happened. Yin Zhonghu was about to speak when he heard Wu Yuding's phone ring. When Wu Yuding saw it, she immediately cried out in joy. I really don't know what kind of good day it is today. My dad actually took the initiative to call me. It seems that today is destined to be a day of reunion. Yes, Xiao Duo and little Nian haven't seen him yet. Chapter 1078. On the other end of the phone, Yin Zhonghu, who was talking to Zhuo Chonglu, naturally heard Wu Yuding's words. His eyes widened. Master, you should ask mistress. Zhuo Xiaonian, who was at the side, suddenly looked up. Her pretty eyes were filled with astonishment. Grandpa? Do Xiao Duo and I really have a grandpa? Wu Yuding laughed and scolded her. You silly girl. Without your grandpa, where would your mother come from? Zhuo Xiaonian smiled foolishly. Yes, yes. She turned her head and couldn't help but be surprised. Dad, why do you look so weird? Zhuo Chonglu snorted, and then remembered to talk to Yin Zhonghu. However, he was shocked to find that Yin Zhonghu had already hung up. Huh, this kid actually dared to hang up on me? What's going on? Immediately, he saw Wu Yuding pick up the phone excitedly. Dad, where have you been all these years? Have you been in seclusion? You're finally out. You didn't even give us any news for so many years. You don't know how worried we were. An embarrassed voice came from the other end. Rainy. He. Is that person beside you? Wu Yuding was annoyed and amused at the same time. He's beside me. Your son-in-law is beside me. Zhuo Chonglu looked up, his eyes darting around. His usually elegant face gradually crumbled. On the other side, Lei Zhangtian was also scratching his head. His hair was in a mess. He laughed awkwardly and said, You're on the side. That's good. That's good. I'll call you later. Wu Yuding was stunned. Dad? You. Say something. She heard someone shouting, Hello. Fuck, why is the Alliance's signal so bad? Pa. The call was hung up. Wu Yuding was stunned. A signal from the Alliance? Zhuo Chonglu's expression changed. He heaved a long sigh of relief. Alright, don't worry. I can roughly imagine what the situation is now. The situation is very clear now. Wu Yuding stared blankly. Is the situation clear? Can you imagine it? I'm still completely dumbfounded. How do you know everything? Shouldn't today be a good day for a family reunion? Zhuo Chonglu sighed. He glanced at his wife and said helplessly, You claim to be smart all your life. How could you be so ignorant? Even now you still don't understand? Second brother must have come out of seclusion and found out that he had a new grandson. He must be very excited and happy, so he naturally came to take a look. When we really see him, other than praising him for being a good kid, we'll think that since we're not by his side, won't he have the responsibility to help teach him? He wants to make up for the regret of not being here all these years, so he took Xiao Duo away to gain experience. That's what happened. Let's think about it a little deeper. Look at the current world. Other than second brother, who is easily hot-headed and makes stupid mistakes at the drop of a hat, who does things on his own without caring about the consequences. Only he would do something like taking Xiao Duo away without telling anyone. This indirectly caused Xiao Duo's inexplicable disappearance. If it were someone else, it would either be difficult to get a response until today, or Xiao Duo would have been dead for a long time. Besides, if it weren't for him, why would he hang up after knowing that I was next to him? He's guilty. It had to be said that Zhuo Chenglu's brain was quite good. He guessed the whole truth just by relying on Lei Changtian's hesitant phone call. Wu Yuding nodded in agreement as she listened. When Zhuo Chenglu finished, he suddenly frowned and said with unusual dissatisfaction, "What do you mean by your second brother? That's my father. Your father-in-law. You call him second brother so blatantly. Do you want to call me eldest niece? Tell me, are you trying to take advantage of me?" Zhuo Chenglu touched his nose and smiled bitterly. "It's not that I don't want to call him father. But the problem is that he doesn't dare to agree. Besides, how many years ago, weren't you eldest niece? Weren't you the one who followed behind him and acted like a spoiled child every day?" However, he absolutely didn't dare to say this now. Wu Yuding's mind turned, and she instantly sorted out the cause and effect. She was sulking and rolled her eyes, but she couldn't vent it. Her disappointing father. Every time he saw his son-in-law, he had a fawning look on his face and rushed to call him big brother. As his daughter, she was speechless. That's not right. Xiao Duo has been missing for more than a day or two. Why didn't he think of calling to inform us? Even if he didn't want to care about Feng Hai, he should have contacted Xingchen or Huzi and his wife. Why did he have to be so anxious? Wu Yuding thought for a while and found another problem. Zhuo Chenglu was speechless. "My dear wife, think about your father's brain. He does things incoherently and thinks he's infallible. I bet that Xiao Duo still doesn't know that it's his grandfather. He must have made up a reason that he thinks is very convincing and sent the child to a dangerous place to gain experience. Think about how he and Xiao Duo are in the UMNO alliance. What else can you not understand? Then how do you know that he won't reveal his true identity? My dear wife, why can't your brain work when it comes to our family? You can understand if you think about it a little. Who is your father? He's the demon ancestor. Among the top people in the world. Except for a limited number of people who can do anything to him. If Xiao Duo knows that his grandfather is such an awesome existence, he'll just treat it as a sightseeing tour no matter how dangerous the place is. Even if second brother forces him to fight, this guy only needs to act coquettishly, and everything will be fine. What's the effect? How would second brother dare to let him know? Who knows what kind of fucking excuse he'll come up with? It had to be said that Zhuo Zhonglu's understanding of Lei Zhangtian's character had reached a very subtle level. His words clearly analyzed Lei Changtian's motives and psychology. It was meticulous and clear, as if he had seen it with his own eyes. Wu Yuding looked distressed. "Then why did you call now? The timing is just before we came out of seclusion. This should be a coincidence, as well as a little bit of certainty." Zhuo Chenglu snorted. "I guess second brother found out that this guy's ability to cause trouble is beyond his expectations. He's even caused a lot of trouble now. It's so big that this bastard found out that he can't handle it alone. After all, they're in the UMNO alliance. Doesn't this mean that Xiao Duo and his grandfather are in danger now?" Wu Yuding's expression changed. "It's not necessarily very dangerous, but a certain degree of danger is inevitable. As we come out of seclusion, the higher-ups of the UMNO alliance will have their concerns. Then we have to hurry. It's a 1 in a million chance. Why are you still dawdling?" Wu Yuding said with dissatisfaction. Zhuo Chenglu was speechless. "I wanted to go there quickly, but you kept asking me questions, didn't you?" But no matter how speechless he was, he didn't dare to talk reason with a woman, especially his own wife. Was his brain damaged? Feng Hai, Yin Zhonghu, and Yu Dongtian looked at each other. They were both speechless and filled with sorrow. Who would have thought that after so many days of mobilizing so many people, it turned out to be a blunder? Now the entire Yinwu Empire was in a state of panic. However, it wasn't that there were no benefits. The bandits within the borders of the continent were almost completely wiped out. Countless corrupt officials had also been purged with the help of this wind. The remaining people were like cicadas in winter, not daring to act rashly for a short period of time, that although they knew that it was a blunder, Yin Zhonghu and Yu Dongtian only frowned and sulked. They didn't dare to say anything. That was the great senior, who dared to say anything. Not to mention the two of them, even Yu Xingchen, the star-plucking monarch. Fuck his grandfather. The one who could curse was Yu Xingqian, the star-plucking monarch. The star-plucking monarch was beyond furious. Fuck his grandfather. He had cursed this sentence thousands of times. It was the same sentence over and over again. There was no other way. Curse his mother? No way. That was his senior. She was practically his mother. How could he curse her? Curse his wife. If his wife was still alive, he could curse her. But since she was already dead, he couldn't curse her anymore. Curse his daughter? That was even more unacceptable. Therefore, Yu Xingqian had no choice but to fuck him. This Lei Lauer has a hole in his brain. His nerves are damaged. His heart is only one orifice, and it's intermittent. His brain circuit. Damn it, this bastard doesn't have a brain circuit at all. Fuck his grandfather. I'm so angry. Yu Xingqian was so angry that his heart, liver, spleen, stomach, and kidneys swelled. But he still couldn't vent his anger. After a long while, he finally took out his phone. He called one by one. Dao, what are you doing? Beat someone up for me. Who? Lei Lauer. You can't beat him? Of course, I know you can't beat him. But don't worry. I'll get Sword to help you. Just wait for my news. When the time comes, just leave everything to fight. Sword. What are you doing? Beat someone up for me. Cousin Qin, what are you doing? Cough cough, beat someone up for me. Your second brother. Which second brother? How many second brothers do you have? It's the father of the woman who snatched your husband from you. Then it's settled. Wait for my news. Dao, what are you doing? Beat someone up for me. You just have to focus on stabbing him. It's decided then. After contacting a few people, Yu Xingqian put down his phone angrily. The left and right heavenly kings, who were nearby, kept quiet out of fear. Their eyes met, and they saw the sincere shock. Beating up the demon ancestor actually required so many people to work together? Yu Xingqian saw their expressions, and knew what they were thinking. He snorted and said, "It's not difficult to kill this old thing. But it's not easy to beat up a cultivator of his level. You two little things cultivate like turtles. If you don't work harder, Beigong Hao and the others will catch up with you. None of you are capable." The left and right heavenly kings looked embarrassed, and swallowed their dissatisfaction. They thought, how can they catch up with us? But you old man, if you don't work harder, we will catch up with you. Then what do we do now? What else can we do? Yu Xingqian said, Yin Zhonghu, go and meet your wife. Guard Shangjing nearby. He turned to look at his son and said angrily, why aren't you guarding the Sun-Moon Pass? What are you waiting for? Do you think you were demoted for 1,000 years for nothing? How can you still be so carefree? They also have sons, I also have sons, but why is the difference between our sons so big? Yu Dongtian walked away with his head drooped. He had no objection to guarding the Sun-Moon Pass for 1,000 years. Now the Dao League was fighting at the front lines. He was just going to watch the show at the Sun-Moon Pass. As for the self-criticism in front of the entire army, it was even less of a problem. Back then, I was beaten up in front of the entire army more than once or twice. My prestige is still at its peak. What's the difference between this and me being on vacation? But no matter what, he is still a son. As a son, why can't I compare to that little rascal? Isn't this series of changes caused by him? Isn't it because he has good parents that he can be so successful now? If I had parents like that. Well, anyway, I can't say it like that. Seeing his son fly away without any sense of propriety, Yu Xingqian became more and more angry. His lips trembled. Huzi, look at your brother Tian's dog shit appearance. Tell me, how did I give birth to such a disappointing son? Yin Zhonghu's mouth twitched. I have to go. Duo is waiting for me. Goodbye, uncle. Wait. Yu Xingqian grabbed Yin Zhonghu and said, this Xiaohu, look. Is there anyone suitable for your brother Tian? If this goes on, won't that kid follow in my footsteps? Hearing this, Yin Zhonghu's face immediately turned ugly. It wasn't that this was difficult, but it was too difficult. Looking at the entire continent, not to mention finding a few female warriors who could match the heavenly king of the right. Even finding one was like finding a needle in a haystack. During the war, female warriors died much faster than male warriors on the battlefield. That this wasn't to disrespect women. It was the truth. In the face of death, Men were always more able to withstand it. As for female warriors who could match the king of Zwulu, they either had a large group of great-grandchildren and a huge family, or they were already married and deeply in love. Husband and wife were birds in the same boat, and would not leave each other day and night. That as far as Yin Zhonghu knew, there was only one female martial artist who was still single and had a high enough status. She was the only female martial artist who was still single. However, Yu Dongtian didn't dare to provoke that one. Even you, Uncle Yu, wouldn't dare to act rashly. It's really rare. It's hard to find. Yin Zhonghu was very melancholy. Don't worry, take your time. I'll leave everything to you, Yu Xingchen said. As long as there's a suitable one, send them to a pile. Send them to a pile. That did you think this was a betrothal? Yu Xingchen said. As long as there's a suitable one. I'll personally go to the Umno Alliance and find the Great Fire Shaman. I'll ask for 2 jugs of wine that's incompatible with water and fire. Yin Zhonghu felt that his whole body was cramping. He said his goodbyes awkwardly and ran away as fast as he could. Zhou Xiaoduo had already come out of the Void Extermination Tower. Otherwise, Zhou Xiaonian wouldn't be able to contact him. Well, the Umno Alliance had already removed the signal jamming. Wu Du and the other great shamans had already confirmed Zhou Xiaoduo's hammering technique. Naturally, they wouldn't target him anymore. Therefore, the signal jamming was meaningless. Previously, when he was cultivating in the Void Extermination Tower, Zhou Xiaoduo realized that after he had advanced to the ultimate profound realm, his cultivation progress was extremely slow. It was so slow that it was almost ridiculous. After staying in the Void Extermination Tower for a total of 6 months, which was equivalent to 2 days in the outside world, Zhang Xuejuan still hadn't woken up. However, Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't help but poke his head out to check on the situation. As soon as Zhou Xiaoduo poked his head out, Lei Changtian, who was still nearby, naturally noticed it. However, he didn't move. If I don't move, you'll definitely think that I've left. Then, you'll have to think of a way to go back quickly. I won't restrict you anymore. You can fly, go invisible, or put on makeup. Anyway, no matter what, you just have to hurry back. If you don't go back, I'll go crazy. Seeing Zhou Xiaoduo poke his head out, he even took 2 steps to test the waters. Then he disappeared with a whoosh. After a while, he poked his head out again. He swaggered about 10 to 20 meters away, before retracting his head again. He poked his head out again. He retracted his head again. Lei Changtian, who was invisible in the sky, felt his stomach ache. Why don't you come out already? No one's going to catch you. After 30 to 40 tests, Zhou Xiaoduo finally confirmed that he wasn't in any danger. In the last few tests, he had walked a few thousand meters, but he was still fine. That meant that old man had left. He finally left. Zhou Xiaoduo almost laughed out loud to vent the joy in his heart. Then, Zhou Xiaoduo started to put on makeup for himself. He changed his muscles and bones and transformed himself into a huge fat man. He appeared shakily, and then ran toward the nearest Umno Alliance city. He had to find a place with signal quickly. His family must be worried sick. Finally, after running for 5,000 to 6,000 miles, his phone finally had signal. Hence, Zhou Xiaoduo took out his phone and prepared to send a message. He didn't dare to make a call. If he did, the signal would be too strong. But coincidentally, just as he took out his phone, Wolf Running Tower digging Lei Taotao's gang shredded Wang Ba Mao. Someone actually called him. Zhou Xiaoduo was shocked and his scalp went numb. Lei Changtian, who was invisible in the sky, was also shocked and his hair stood on end. When Zhou Xiaoduo saw the caller ID, it was my dear wife missing cat. He was immediately happy and picked up the call without saying anything. Our hearts are really connected. I'm no longer the little dog I used to be. When we meet again. He hung up the call as soon as possible. Then, Zhou Xiaoduo continued to shake his fat and trembling body as he dashed forward. However, Lei Changtian, who was in the sky, was stunned. I actually heard the sound of rain. Oh. Both of them came out of seclusion? Lei Changtian painfully thought for a long time. He felt that he should confess and be lenient. After all, it had been such a long time. He guessed that both of them were about to fall sick from anxiety. If it was only Zhou Changchang, who cared how he died. But his daughter was also involved. Besides, when Zhuo Changchang wanted to beat him up, his daughter was the key person to protect him. Hence, Lei Changtian took out his phone and called his daughter with all his courage. When he asked, he found that guy beside her. Instantly, Lei Changtian didn't dare to say anything. He only hinted to his daughter that she should leave him alone later, and he would call again. Zhuo Changchang couldn't know about this. However, Lei Changtian never expected that this intermittent and vague phone call would completely expose him. After hanging up the phone, Lei Changtian trembled in fear for a long time before he went forward to chase after Zhuo Xiaoduo. In the end, he was still worried. This little guy was a troublemaker deep down. Reality proved that a certain grandfather's worries were true. He saw that Zhuo Xiaoduo had encountered a new situation at a glance and hurried over to see what was going on. He saw a burly figure in green linen clothes. His hair was messy, and his hands were behind his back. He was standing in front of Zhuo Xiaoduo and seemed to be saying something. When Lei Changtian saw this person from afar, he couldn't help but tremble all over. Although this person changed his appearance, how could he not recognize him? Even if you turn into ashes, I can still recognize which piece floating in the air is yours. You are the Great Flood Witch. Lei Changtian's eyes instantly turned red. The Flood Witch, his irreconcilable enemy. It was him who caused the downfall of all his brothers. It was him who hammered him twice and forced him to live in seclusion for 1,000 years to recover from his injuries. It was this bastard. Now this bastard is actually stopping my dear grandson again. What is he trying to do? Is he trying to cut the grass and get rid of the roots? Lei Changtian's heart was in his throat. He activated all his cultivation and quietly approached. He gritted his teeth and glared, but he didn't dare to take another step forward. Damn it! It seems that my time has come. If this guy dares to do anything to Xiaoduo, I'll immediately self-destruct this bastard. Who's afraid of who? Damn it! Coming to the UMNO alliance this time was really unlucky. He had bumped into all sorts of monsters, but in the next moment his eyes widened. The Flood Witch on the other side said something, and Zhuo Xiaoduo actually nodded happily. Then he followed the Flood Witch all the way forward. Lei Changtian's eyes widened in disbelief. What the fuck? What's going on? Why did that little bastard follow her? That's the Flood Witch. Where's your vigilance? Where's your cautiousness? This is too unreal, isn't it? Zhuo Xiaoduo had just turned the mountain pass when he saw the long-haired weirdo in front of him. Suddenly, a vague feeling as heavy as a mountain suddenly attacked him. At the first sight of this person, Zhuo Xiaoduo felt that the whole world was stagnant. Even his divine thoughts were no exception. They were frozen. Under such circumstances, even if he wanted to hide in the Tower of Annihilation, he couldn't do it. The guy could kill him with just a glance. It would take a moment to hide in the Tower of Annihilation, and in that moment, the guy could kill him. Countless times. Realizing this, Zhuo Xiaoduo couldn't help but feel his heart pounding. He didn't dare to act rashly. In the next moment, he saw the burly guy waving at him and saying, "Little brother, can you ask for directions?" Ask for directions? Zhuo Xiaoduo instinctively tried to read the man's fortune. Chapter 1079. Oh yeah. Everything in front of him was foggy and deep. As expected, he couldn't see anything at all. Luckily, he was prepared, so he wasn't surprised at all. The strength displayed by the other party was beyond Zhuo Xiaoduo's understanding, so he shouldn't be able to see anything. However, the curious Zhuo Xiaoduo threw out 2 drops of Providence points, but in the end, the Providence points were actually bounced back. Bounced back. This result shocked Zhuo Xiaoduo so much that his heart spasmed. The luck points were bounced back completely intact. Oh my god. What kind of terrifying overlord is this? This is the first time I've encountered a situation where my luck points were bounced back. Not only was the person in front of him ridiculously powerful, far exceeding his understanding, but he was also an expert in the luck path. His providence was also valiant to the point of surpassing others by a large margin. Senior, may I ask where you want to go? Where do you want to go? Zhuo Xiaoduo's attitude was unprecedentedly respectful. Yes, I want to go to the Sun Moon Pass, but I've been in seclusion for so many years, and now that I've come out, everything has changed. It's unfamiliar, and I don't know where to go. The person frowned. Oh, what a coincidence. I also want to go to the Sun-Moon Pass. Swishaoduo looked at the unfathomable expert in front of him suspiciously. Could it be that this person has seen through my identity? What a coincidence. The person said kindly. May I ask what your surname is? My surname is Zhua. Swishaoduo said seriously. A little brother Zhua. My surname is Shui. Since we're all going to the Sun-Moon Pass, why don't we travel together? Greetings, Senior Shui. You're welcome. It's great that Senior Shui wants to travel with us, but I'm afraid I'll take up too much of your time. Swishaoduo made up his mind. If it was a blessing, it wouldn't be a disaster. And if it was a disaster, it couldn't be avoided. How could he resist the unfathomable strength displayed by the person in front of him? I'm just thinking about it, so I don't mind wasting some time. Little brother, do you know if there's a city nearby? Let's go and find out where we are going. The messy-haired figure spoke in a kind tone, but the inexplicable majesty that flowed out of his body, even though he had tried his best to restrain it, was still engraved in Zhuoxiaoduo's spiritual sense that was 1,000 times stronger than an ordinary person's, causing him to feel fear. Zhuoxiaoduo's heart was pounding like a little deer. He clearly understood that the person in front of him was probably the strongest person he had ever met. Even the people's livelihood couldn't compare to it. Well, the shortcoming here was not only in terms of cultivation realm, but also in terms of overall strength and combat strength. Although Elder Wan's cultivation was pure and his realm was high, when it came to the heart of killing, his combat strength was not outstanding at all. Because he had been in seclusion for more than 1,000,000 years, it was not an exaggeration to say that he had little combat experience. Therefore, his overall combat strength was far inferior to his cultivation realm. To give a relatively direct example, Swishaoduo was able to kill opponents 2 levels higher than him. Wasn't it because his overall combat strength was extremely high, and he was even stronger than those opponents whose cultivation bases were far above his? The so-called non-battle crimes were only because many internal and external factors were not taken into account. Otherwise, how could there be so many non-battle crimes? However, what kind of person would be a mighty figure whose comprehensive strength might be stronger than Elder Wan's? Was there really such a person in the world? Although Swishaoduo was terrified, he had a clear feeling that this person didn't have any ill intentions towards him. In fact, he even had a strange feeling that this person was helping a junior and taking care of him. Could it be that I've really met a good person? Swishaoduo couldn't help letting his imagination run wild. The two of them chatted along the way, and they didn't feel lonely at all. Looking at little brother's was age, your bone age and spiritual soul. You're at most in your 20s, right? However, his cultivation is not ordinary, it is pure and profound. A 20-year-old profound returnance cultivator is already rare and commendable. The depth of his foundation is far above that of many Skysore cultivators. Since ancient times, there have only been a few such geniuses. Sire Shui said, Senior is praising me too much. My cultivation isn't worth mentioning before Senior. It's like a firefly compared to the moon. Haha, your cultivation might be inferior to mine now. But when I was your age, I was also like a firefly compared to the moon. Sire Shui solemnly replied, We've been traveling together for more than a day. Why don't we have a spar when you're feeling frustrated? I'm interested in seeing your strength and cultivation, and there's no harm in finding some problems with you. Sire Shui's words were really straightforward. He directly said that he wanted to give Swishaoduo some pointers. However, Swishaoduo rejoiced and replied, Thank you, Sire Shui. At the same time, his heart was filled with anticipation. Swishaoduo knew very well that if the other party wanted to kill him, he could do it with a glare. There was really no need to spar and give pointers. Thus, Sire Shui's words must be from the bottom of his heart. It was a great opportunity to receive guidance from such an almighty being. It was an opportunity that ordinary people might not even be able to obtain, even if they spent their entire lives dreaming of it. So how could Swishaoduo not be excited? The two of them entered the nearest city and asked about the direction of the Sun-Moon Pass before Sire Shui brought Zhuo and soared into the sky. I'll bring you along, and I'll give you pointers when we reach a place where there's no one around. All right. The two of them soared into the sky like shooting stars and disappeared in a flash. After they soared into the sky, Sire Shui waved his sleeves and countless strong gales suddenly appeared. Instantly, the entire sky and land behind him was split into many strips. With this wave of his sleeves, countless spatial cracks appeared behind him, blocking the demon ancestor and preventing him from following them. Flood. Damn you! Lei Changtian spent a lot of effort to break through these obstructions, but when he soared into the sky again, he could no longer sense the two of them. The sky was clear, and the ground was vast. But this time, he had really lost them. Fuck you. Lei Changtian was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Fuck you. Bastard. Why did you come out to stir shit? Fuck you. After searching for a long time, Lei Changtian still couldn't find any clues, and he completely collapsed. He pointed at the sky and cursed the earth, but it was useless. No matter how angry, frustrated, and depressed he was, no matter how many negative emotions he accumulated, Lei Changtian still didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly chased in the direction of the Sun-Moon Pass. All methods led to the same destination. The destination of the two of them was the Sun-Moon Pass. As long as he rushed there at the fastest speed, he would definitely be able to find clues about their whereabouts. But along the way, Lei Changtian was flustered and exasperated, and he cursed endlessly. What does it have to do with you? Do I need you to jump out and cause trouble? This is ridiculous. That's my grandson. What does he have to do with you? Bullshit number one expert. You should be more reserved. Where's your identity? Where's your dignity? Where's the bearing of an expert? Fuck you. You are not a fucking human. As he cursed, he anxiously chased forward. Lei Zhangtian was not worried at all. If the flood which wanted to take Wuxia's life, he could kill him with just a glance. Lei Zhangtian was not in front of him. Even if he was in front of him, he would not be able to stop him. Since she didn't make a move just now, it was impossible for her to do it again. But this wasn't the problem now, okay? Why did you take him away? What am I supposed to do now? I've brought my grandson here, but I've already lost him twice. This time it was even worse. He had already called his daughter, and he didn't know how she would react. Would she be able to guess the whole story? How did things become like this? The child was taken away by the flood witch, and in this world at most, only the child's father could get him back. But then, how could he hide it? Lei Changtian was so worried that his intestines were in a knot. As he ran, he heard the phone ring urgently. Ring, ring, ring. Ring, ring, ring. Lei Changtian was on the verge of breaking down. There was no need to ask who was calling. Other than his own daughter, who else would call him? And this call was just made by him. The evils he brought upon himself were the hardest to bear. Lei Changtian hesitated again and finally stopped in the air to answer the call. Hello. He forced himself to calm down and tried to make his voice as steady as possible, pretending as if nothing had happened. Dad. Wu Yuding's anxious voice came through. Where are you now? Lei Changtian cursed in his heart. What's wrong? You're getting more and more impudent. You don't even care about your father anymore. And you're the only one left out. But he kept replying. Hey, I'm here. Where is this place again? Wu Yuding exploded on the phone. Where are you? Grumbling my ass. Hurry up and say it. Where did you take my son? Her voice was so loud that it was deafening. Lei Changtian subconsciously moved the phone away from his ear, and his face twisted even more. Cough, cough. Don't worry. I just want to train him. I'm doing this for the sake of the child. Only by suffering the hardest can one rise above others. Lei Changtian said humbly. For his sake, my ass. Hurry up and tell me where he is. Where are the two of you now? He's here. Why are you dilly-dallying? Is the child not by your side? If he is, let him answer the phone. Her words hit the nail on the head, and there was no room for excuses. That child is not by my side now. Lei Changtian wanted to die, but he could only tell the truth. Where did he go? Once she heard that he was not by her side, Wu Yuding immediately became angry. Cough cough. He was taken away. Aye. Daughter, don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I will. Lei Changtian was so anxious that he stuttered. Then, there was suddenly no sound from the other side of the phone. Lei Changtian's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. Daughter, Rainy, don't. A steady voice came from the other side of the phone. Your daughter has fainted. Now, you can tell me what you want to say. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.